Hey folks, can y'all hear me? I gotta make sure my sound's right. Let's make sure this is right. Hold on, I gotta make sure my sound is on properly. Let's see. Can y'all hear me? I need a response here. Any sound? I don't know if y'all can hear me or not. Oh, that's a yes? Perfect. Boom. Hey, you guys. Okay, so happy, what's today? Thursday. I'm gonna give everybody a minute to jump on. So let's do about 5 minutes of all the great catching up, and then we'll kind of go from there. All right. Let me just bring my laptop in a little closer. So let's see who we got on today. How somebody already got a dislike? I ain't even started the video yet. Somebody is hating. How you subscribed and hating? Get that together. Respectfully yours, just talked about that too. That's funny. Hey, Latoya, Israel, Brian, John, Jaja, Felicia Adams, Lady V. Look, I'm starting to recognize your names a lot. I always see Lady V all the time. Latu, I think I'm saying that right. Thank you for the compliment. Tefman, Jamila Brown. If I skip your name, please don't take it personal. I'm just kind of scrolling at the same time. Michelle, Walter H. Respectfully yours. Leash. I think I said it right. Desmond, what's going on? You said I shared your video of Howard University and New White Neighbors. Hey, Alan. By the way, I told y'all should really follow Alan's channel. Alan always has like a bunch of music stuff, and I think you follow him on Twitter too. He always does a lot of covers musically. So if you're really into music and singing, you should definitely check him out. Glazed Honey Bun, that's a name there. Hello, Christine, finally caught alive. Welcome, Farrah. Hello from Alabama. Melrose and me, where have you been all my life? Look, I've been on this channel for 10 years. Where you been at? Let's see. What's going on, Jeremiah, Rashawn, Marlon? Yeah, I recognize Marlon too. Toy, Sam J, I always recognize you. Shout out to Vegas. Is that Michelle V? Hello, DC neighbor. All right, I gotta get going. I don't want to spend on too much time, but hello, everybody. So glad y'all are here with us. Before we do jump, I did say this on it was either the last in the news or the Lil Wayne video. I think it was in the news, but I told you guys I had started a new book, Not in My Neighborhood. So for those, dang, I don't know if it's playing backwards to you guys. I don't know what it looks like, but for those who are interested, this is a really great read to check out. I haven't really got that far into it yet, but this is probably what the first Zoom session will be on. We'll do some other stuff, but I'm focusing it on this book. Again, it's Not My Neighborhood, Antero Patella. But secondly, we talked about it maybe August, I think, and I said that like the autobiography of Malcolm X was going to Audible, and it was actually going to be narrated by Lawrence Fishburne. I have started it. It is a good read. Like, I mean, I've already read the book a few times, but it's different when you hear it like read to you. So for anybody who's interested in that, I'm also going to talk about that on the Zoom. That first Zoom day is going to probably be in December. I'll give some more details about that a little bit later. Plus, I think we're going to do 2 lives as well in December. I have a little bit more free time, and so I can get a little bit more out. What else do we have going on before I get jumping into everything? Let me just tell you how the order is going to go so you know what parts you want to stay for. So, of course, I always start off pretty light with a few light topics. We're going to get into some heavy stuff. We're talking about, well, one, I'm going to definitely talk about Morris Brown for a quick second. A quick moment of Alex Trebek. And then I want to definitely get into Kawan Charles. I don't know if it's Kawan or Kawan Charles, but that was a kid in Louisiana that pretty much was found mysteriously dead. We're going to talk about that. Clearly, we still got to talk about the election because there's a whole lot more to still cover. I definitely told y'all I was going to have a few things to say about Paula White and some of these televangelists that keep making a bunch of money off the vulnerabilities of poor people. I want to talk about this new stand your ground law in Florida that's magically popped out. I want to talk about even the sterilizations that's been happening to some of the people in this country in regards to not just those who are immigrant families, but also the history of how that's happened in the United States with Black people collectively. I want to talk about Louisville and these 738,000 files of child abuse by the police department that have kind of just been under the radar. And then I want to kind of close out with a conversation on homeownership, and then we'll definitely chat with some music stuff. All right. Some SF said, how did I get a Rich? Did you sign up? I can take you off if you didn't want. That might have been an accident. Sorry, SF. If you want to stay a moderator, you can stay when I can take you off and switch with somebody. It might have been like a YouTube glitch. YouTube was tripping yesterday too, because I noticed you couldn't get on. So hold on, SF. I got you. I don't want to put y'all under that pressure if that's not your thing. Let's see. Okay. Sorry about that. Let's see. Did you shout out the small businesses yet? Good question. So for the shout out series, what I decided to do was I didn't expect the stupid election to be so chaotic still. So I said, let me let some of that die down and then upload the shout out video. So the shout out series, I think, comes out this weekend. I just didn't want it to be overshadowed by election talk and then nobody pays attention to it because it was supposed to come out last Saturday. But, you know, here we are. You're good, SF. No worries. Toy, you want to be moderator? Cool. I got you. You can take their place. All right, we got to start, guys. Okay, so I definitely want to start with some good news for those of you who pay attention to what happens with HBCUs. If you remember, Morris Brown was a college that unfortunately they lost their accreditation in 2002, and it kind of pretty much forced them not to like 100% close their doors, because from what I understand, they've always still had students, but it got to the point where their population was like 40 students, literally. And if you know, Morris Brown is a part of the AU. So it's in that same mix with Morehouse, Clark Atlanta, Spelman. And so my initial introduction to a Morris Brown college was Drumline the movie. As a matter of fact, my introduction to HBCUs was Drumline the movie. Like, I think I told the story before, but when I went to an HBCU fair as a junior, I went to the fair looking for Atlanta A&T College, thinking it was a real school. And the people were like, no, that's not a school. But I knew, you know, Morris Brown was a real school because it was featured in the movie. But it's crazy that literally in the same year that, you know, they have this big movie that they're featured in, they lose their accreditation. But, you know, they finally gotten their accreditation back. And so it opens a lot of doors when it comes to funding, Pell Grants, everything. So hopefully in the span of the next 2 or 3 years, they can really bounce back. Because again, with HBCUs, a lot of times the biggest setback that many of them face, of course, is funding. Most of them are not federally funded. Some are funded by the state. The private ones are pretty much all of their funding comes from grants and donors and alumni relations. And so it's always good to see schools bounce back because there have been some that have closed in the past. I think in the last 20 years, there's been 3 that have closed. The ones I wrote down that I remember, Concordia College closed in 2018. Morristown College, not Morris Brown, but Morristown College, that one closed in 94. St. Paul's College closed in 2013. You had Lewis College of Business in Detroit. That one closed in 2013. Mary Homer College, 2004. And those are just a handful of them, but there's been a bunch that have also closed before. So it's always important to, you know, support those HBCUs. I know some people are always running their mouths and saying, oh, well, you don't get the real experience at an HBCU that you would get at a majority institution or a PWI, so on and so forth. I'm not about to engage in the which is better and so on and so forth, but I would say this. I think a lot of people underestimate what happens at HBCUs, and there's a lot of people who just are under the assumption that the only thing people do is swag surf and party, and it's this wonderful black utopia of blackness, and that's it. No, there's a lot of things that happen on HBCU campuses. I don't know what kind of person I would be today had I not gone to one. I know I would have still been kind of enlightened, but it's just, there's a lot of conversations to have. Anyway, let's see, what else are we talking about? But yeah, and it's funny too, because what used to get me, especially like coming out of Howard, what would annoy me the most is I'd always see, and by the way, I try to not be one of those people that come from Howard and run and talk about Howard all night, all day, because I see the commentary. People do not like Howard students. They're like, y'all are so pretentious, but I try not to always gas up my school. I love my school, but I support all HBCUs. But it's so funny that sometimes when you're having these conversations, people will try to like trash talk your school. And then I'm like, okay, but where did you go to school? And then they're like, oh, I went to, you know, northeastern Montana side of the road college. And it's some school that got 500 students that ain't nobody ever heard of. And because, again, when you're talking about the lens and proximity to whiteness, people automatically assume that that school is going to be a better school than a school like Howard. And I'm just like, y'all, okay, whatever. Can't do it. You know what I mean? Bunch of foolery. Moving on. I did want to talk for a quick second on Alex Trebek. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But, you know, I will say there are some public figures where even if you don't pay that much attention to them or they're not your person that you run to for everything, there's still sometimes a connection when they pass on. And I think with Alex Trebek, because Jeopardy has just been something, especially if you're like my age and you know, you're younger than the show Jeopardy, you know, for as long as I can remember, that's just always been somebody who's always been in the picture. Jeopardy wasn't a show that I ran to watch every day, but it still was something that, you know, I'd watch on occasion. And when I still live with my family, you know, when we'd have our family dinner, you know, there was kind of a schedule that was always there. Wheel of Fortune at 7 o'clock, Jeopardy at 7:30. As a family, we would try to see who could get the most questions right, everything like that. Even though, you know, as a Black person watching that show, sometimes they would have some categories on there. You'd be like, oh, you know, we don't know none of these ones. We'll just wait for the next one. Because they'd be like, you know, Shakespearean cities. And I'm like, oh, God, okay, all I know is Verona now. So we out of luck on this one. And I don't know if you guys saw, there was a clip. I think it's like a few months back, but it was a Janet Jackson question. So, of course, I got excited. But the question was like, this, you know, artist in 2018 won the Billboard Music Award, Lifetime Achievement, blah, 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 blah. And then they played the performance of her performing Nasty. And so the guy answers and he's like, who's Ariana Grande? I was like, damn. Okay. But I mean, I guess Janet had the ponytail, so you could kind of see it. But I was like, come on, y'all. Come on. But no, it's always sad to kind of see people pass on. But I will say, for him to be, what was he, 80? That was a good looking 80. Like, I hope when I get to that age, I can kind of keep it together here. Because, you know, some people get to a certain age and they shrivel up and everything. And, you know, it feels like you can just pull their face back and all the skin would just slide back. But, you know, to each his own. But I would say that was a good 80. And for him to be sick, it's like you couldn't even tell. And for him to also keep going, almost like in the same category that we had Chadwick Boseman, where it's like you work through the pressure. Like, stuff like that is amazing to follow. And so that's definitely a rich legacy to have. I do think the show will keep going. I don't know what they're going to do as far as hosts, but I just think there's some shows that, you know, will always kind of be a staple in American households. So like Wheel of Fortune will probably always be here. Jeopardy will always be here. Family Feud will always be here. Saturday Night Live, even though I always thought Mad TV was a lot funnier. Saturday Night Live was cool. They're funny when they do the political sketches, but sometimes they're very hit and miss. They're good for the performances. But, you know, I think that show, you know, Jeopardy will definitely still be here. That's always been a fun one to watch. All right, let's check some commentary, and then we're going to get into the heavier stuff. And I think my music is on in the background, so I'm going to have to cut it off because I don't got time for YouTube to be snatching my little funds here for the day. Dina said, I'm at a PWI with a big Black population, so it's kind of like being at an HBCU. Somebody said, fun fact, he died. I don't think that's fun, but okay. Yeah, somebody said, G said, I remember watching Jeopardy with my grandma. I was a young girl. You know what I used to watch? I watched all the court shows with my grandma. Growing up, like, she watched, you remember Judge Mills Lane, Judge Joe Brown, the People's Court, even before the woman that's on there now is on there. I think I said Judge Judy. She watched all the judge shows. She'd have me sitting right by her space heater, and we'd be sitting there. And she had one of those throwback gas heaters where, I wish I could think of what the brand is. If you're throwback and you're from the South, you know what I'm talking about. But it's like a metal box that's, it maybe sits about 1.5 feet off the ground, and it's hooked up to gas, and you turn on the gas. It's like a gray box with a white little fence thing that's fireproof, and you turn on the gas, and you get the little match, and you throw it in there, and it does a poof and everything, and then you can turn up the gas, turn it up to make it go hot or cold. My grandma had one of those in her house. This is in Savannah, Georgia, in her den. I can't think of what it's called, but, you know, you want to talk about some good heat, like, because my grandma's house, like, she turned her garage into a den, so, you know, the vents and stuff didn't go to that part of the house. But that little gas heater that she had in that corner, that thing used to, somebody said a fire pit. No, it's not a fire pit. That, you know, in one of these videos, I'll post a picture, or one of these days when I finally figure out how to do the funner live versions where I can have pictures on the side, I'll show a picture. But yeah, that thing can crank some heat. Like that alone, that was some heat. Somebody said kerosene. I don't think it's called that. Dang, but it's like this metal box. But anyway, yeah, it's like a space heater, but it's kerosene heater. Let me Google it and see real quick. Sorry, y'all, because now I'm sitting. This is the Leo coming out. I'm being stuck, and we're gonna figure this out. Let's see. Guess. Let's see. Plus, let's give other people time to get on. Let me type in vintage. Vintage. By the way, I don't like this iOS 14 that just came out at all. I can't stand it, but I'm gonna make it work. Dang. Okay, I'm wasting too much time. I don't want to waste all time. Oh, okay. It's called a vintage Dearborn. That's what it's called. I don't know if y'all can see this. Y'all not gonna be able to see this that well. See this right here? It looks literally just like this, right? And so she had one of those. Somebody said a radiator. Is that what they called it? I don't know. I just called it vintage Dearborn. But okay. Anyway, so yeah, my grandma had one of those. Like, she had a bunch of throwback stuff. She still had, well, she initially got one of the eventually got one of the, you know, a regular stove, but she also used to have the throwback stove that you put the coal in and everything. She didn't use it, but I remember it sitting in the kitchen. Like she had one of those. Yeah, her house was throwback. I used to love that house. And then like in the backyard, she had like a banana tree, a moss tree, a date tree, a pecan tree, weeping willow. Like I used to love that backyard as a child. Good times, good times. It's hard getting older sometimes, I swear. All right, let's see. What are we talking about? Yes, Google is your friend, Christine. I agree. You must have been either listening to my album or the podcast. Yeah, there was that possum in the backyard. Yeah, this one time she thought it was a cat. It was literally a possum in the backyard. And then she told me, go back there like with a broomstick and go chase it out the yard. Cause she felt like the cats used to mess up her laundry because she didn't have a washer and dryer. She would go to the laundromat, but sometimes she would wash her clothes by hand and hang them on the line in the backyard and everything. And the cats would get all into it, or the squirrels. And so, yeah, she tried to send me in the backyard one time to go and chase a whole possum out. I'm like, Grandma, and I'm like 11. I was like, that ain't a cat, Grandma. Okay, anyway, that was all fun, but let me get to the serious stuff now. Hey, Lisa Loves Beauty. All right. Oh, somebody said Eva Longoria. I forgot all about her. You know, she wasn't even on my radar like that. Remind me at the end. So let's talk about Kawan Charles, right? And so this is a story that really has not been in the media like that yet. I think it's going to be one of those stories that picks up as social media continues to carry the story. I first saw it yesterday, actually. And so this is coming from November 2nd. And so there was a kid, Kawan Charles, 15 years old, in the state of Louisiana. And so according to what the parents had said, this is the mother and the father, you know, he apparently left with some friends without permission, or they didn't know that he had left, pretty much. He went somewhere with some friends, never came home. And they called the police. They said everything as far as, you know, hey, our son has not been home. And mind you, this is a Black family. Son has not been home. You know, can we put out an Amber Alert? The police pretty much tell the mom, well, you know, it's Friday. He's probably at a football game. So no, we're not going to do the Amber Alert. We're not going to really push that out there. And again, that's a conversation as well when you talk about Black youth going missing. Amber Alerts, sometimes the traction is not the same. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times, a lot of Black youth, when they go missing, the first thing that's always said is, oh, they probably ran away. And so that sense of urgency isn't there. And really, when you're talking Amber Alerts, it seems like the urgency really comes for children that are under the age of 10 and that tend to be young white girls. And so, of course, they don't do the Amber Alert. 3 days later, his body is found in what you would call like a sugarcane field. And the saddest part is that the body is found by a drone. Literally, the drone is what finds the body. And so, as you know, they find everything. What's being reported is that, you know, they're saying it was just some kind of incident. I've seen a bunch of different reports. One was saying a drowning, but there wasn't any water by the field. But with the parents, they paid for a private autopsy. And then, you know, in addition, when they identified the body, the mom is saying something isn't right because it looks like there's a huge, like some kind of blow that hit the kid in the head. And also, unfortunately, I have seen the picture. I was not planning to look because, again, I don't like looking at that kind of trauma porn. But, you know, you type his name in, it's going to pop up. And so literally, thank you, official BNA Music 88. Shout out to 88, my birth year. You know, if you look at the picture, and I'll try not to be too graphic, but the right side of his face, or maybe it's the left based on the mirror of the picture, it looks like he has been dragged like face down in the road. That's what it looks like to me with that side of his face, because all of this is disfigured. And it's kind of gruesome because it almost gives you that same essence of an Emmett Till. But for me, what I also thought about is it reminds me of Kendrick Johnson. And you remember we've talked about Kendrick Johnson a lot of times. And the saddest part with his case is that finally the state of Georgia was like, it's a wrap. There's nothing left with that. And, you know, as a matter of fact, the parents need to pay the legal bills. And you remember Kendrick Johnson, that's the student that was found rolled up in the wrestling mat. And they tried to say, you know, they tried to say he killed himself or something. There was video missing in the school. Like when you looked at the video footage, there's seconds and moments that are missing. A lot of people believe that he was either attacked by another student, possibly hit with a barbell. The students literally tried to hide it. People in the school may have been in on it. And there's that. And then on top of that, when they did the private autopsy, you know, he had no organs. There was newspaper stuffed inside this kid's body. So going back to Kawan Charles, it's kind of the same energy. Now, there's some alleged reports saying that, you know, he was with a friend and the friend's mother. And this is apparently a white family. And, you know, they were the last ones to see him. At the same time, there are some people who feel that it may be questionable because they feel that the father seems a little suspect. I'm not going to jump on that right now because I think, one, it's too early on and it would be in poor taste to start trying to question anything. I'm just going on what's been put out there. And so there's a lot of questions around this case, but really the smoke is on the police for not being engaged and really, you know, even attempting to look for this kid. In addition, there was an audio that was leaked. And in this audio, there's an alleged woman who's talking to the mother, who's saying that she believes she knows what happened. Thank you, Busy. Oh, what's up, Gerard? Who pretty much knows. Check out his channel, by the way. If you're really into shows like Big Brother or, you know, all the big reality shows, he does a lot of reviews. So check him out too. That's one of my Howard U folks. But the woman is saying that, you know, she saw Quawan, this white kid, and his mother all together. Apparently, they were saying that the other people may have been on something. And then later down the line, there was some conversation about not smoking in the car that they were in because they had just bleached the car and the car smelled like bleach. There's a whole lot of details that everything is still sketchy. So I don't want to jump on here and start pushing anything as fact until there are more details that come out. But something is real sketchy in all of it. But again, at the end of the day, there's a 15-year-old kid that is no longer here. There are no answers to what happened. The police did not act. The mother is distraught. You know, the mother literally, I don't think people think about the trauma of losing a child. It's one thing to lose a child, but then when you lose a child in a violent way, when you lose a child and you see that harm has been done, and as a parent, you weren't able to be there to protect them, I think that's a hurt you can never even live with. Just like when we talk about death, and we always say that, you know, something like death you can't ever get over, but you learn to live with it. I don't even think you can learn to live with that. You know, I think that's something that haunts you forever. And so we'll see how it kind of unfolds. I'm trying to look at my notes and see if there's anything I skipped. But again, like it's literally just, it's frustrating because you keep seeing the same thing happen all the time. And again, when you go to the authorities or the police, you know, they don't do anything. They won't help you, you know, or they don't take you as seriously. It's one of the reasons why I feel like people who follow me on Twitter probably get annoyed. But every time I see the missing child, can you help me find my cousin? I'm always pushing retweet. I know folks be like, oh my God, you got 15,000 missing kids on your timeline. But again, I just, you know, when you lose somebody and there's that closure is not there, I think it's something that follows people forever. And I just think in this climate, nothing is, you know, off the table. In this climate where anti-Blackness is just, you know, it's just saturated, it's not too far-fetched to believe that, you know, some random white kids would snatch this kid up, beat him up, kill him, do whatever, drop him off in the field. It's nothing new under the sun. It's happened so many times, so many times. You remember there was that story out of Mississippi back in the 80s where there was the guy who got snatched up by the Klan walking down the road and they found him, you know, in the grass, you know, a few days or a few weeks later. Like those kind of things always happen. So I always say you have to be careful as well, even like when you're just out and about, even right now with everything happening with the election, and there's a lot of just bad energy that's out there right now. And I'll definitely say you have to really be careful, watch your surroundings, and even for parents, keep an eye on your kids and then have that conversation with your kids about, you know, make sure that, you know, the people you're running with are people that, you know, are not just people that you trust, but like your discernment light is on. And when something doesn't feel right, get yourself out of that environment. There's just, you know what I mean? It's crazy. And it's just sad, like literally, you know, a 15-year-old, and it's nothing for parents. A lot of times their teenage kids go out and, you know, they weren't supposed to be out, but they'll come home later, get cussed out and, you know, have to cut the grass and so on and so forth. But unfortunately for that parent, that's not their experience. Her son is gone, and not just gone, but like brutally murdered. It's horrible. I'm gonna pause on that. Let me read the comments real quick. I'm trying to do a better job of reading comments as I go along. They said it was an accident. I hear my neighbors arguing. I don't know if y'all can hear that in the background. I can't look at bodies anymore. I can't look at that crap either. It's draining. Let's see. Just saw the picture. I feel sick. And by the way, if that's not your thing, please don't look at it. It doesn't change the story, but it just makes anything worse. Or it just, you know, it pretty much solidifies what's already being said. It's almost like, again, with Emmett Till, and when they do the funeral, and the mom was like, no, don't close the casket, leave it open. Let everybody see what y'all did to my son. Just for the woman, you know, later down the line to say she was lying about everything and she's just living her best life. Hot mess, right? Let's see. Somebody said, I saw a news report that a kid from San Francisco that was found hanging from a tree. The hangings happened in the 90s. Let's see. Okay, let's keep going, guys. So yeah, that's it's tough. Somebody asked me, wait, the Million MAGA March, ain't nobody think about them. It's going to be a real thing. The nerve of white people to hijack a black movement. We'll get to that in a minute. I take that back. That's the next thing on the paper. So let's jump back into this election. I was already done talking about it, but here we are again because, the current president still wants to be foolish. So I do want to say this before I go any further. I think if you follow me, you know where I stand when it comes to American politics. One, I don't really trust any politician. To me, most of them are full of crap. The majority of them are, and a lot of them are bought out, so on and so forth. However, in what you would say 2020, the current president is just he's in another category of just cuckoo. You know what I mean? And so you just see, you see a lot, right? Like, man. So let's just start. So he believes that this election is rigged and that there are all kind of fraudulent votes and, they have just stolen this election from him. And these extra 5 million people that voted against him, it's all fraudulent. Pennsylvania's fraud, Georgia's fraud, all the states that pretty much voted against him, there's fraud, but the ones that supported him, there's no smoke. And so again, just to go back over the dynamics really quick. So if you remember, this year was not a regular year, right? You had COVID-19, you have a pandemic, you have pretty much an instant where you have more people do early voting. You have more people do absentee and mail-in voting than people who actually vote on the actual election day. Now, the current president, he told all of his folks, don't do the mail-in. And I think he knew why he was saying that, because if you remember on our last live, we talked about the Postmaster General DeJoy and everything he had going as far as corrupting the U.S. Postal Service and making sure the mail was delayed and so on and so forth. I'll come back to that. But he pretty much told his folks, do not. What's going on in my comments? Y'all, I see a lot of capital. Oh, somebody talking trash? Oh, whatever. Anyway, I'll come back to them later. Let them sit here and, oh, what's up? Who? Whatever, I don't care. And so literally, he told his folks, do not use the mail service. Vote in person. However, other people who were worried about the pandemic decided we're going to vote in. Hold on, let me take care. Oh, they already got it. Never mind. We're going to vote in mail or person, whatever. So there are a lot of people who decided they're going to use the mail-in. They're not going to vote in person. I was one of those people. Pretty much like I said in the last video, I decided to do absentee because in 2016, I stood in line for 3 hours. I said, this makes no sense. I'm never doing this crap again. And then on top of that, like I said, people are crazy. And in America right now, we live in an America where white folks show up to everything with guns. Everything. And it's just normal. Where they show up with guns to everything, talking about there being a poll watcher. And I know the kind of person I am. It would be the wrong person walking up on me the wrong way. And I know I'm not going to shut up. And then next thing you know, I'm a hashtag. So I said, because I already know how I am in certain situations, I need to stay my behind at the house and do mail-in and leave it at that. And so you see this huge amount of people who do mail-in. Over 100 million people do early voting, right? And so when they start counting the actual votes, thank you, Queen. When they start doing the actual votes on election day, normally the routine is count the votes that are same day and then come back to the mail-in, come back to the absentee. Now, on top of that, there were a few things that shifted. Some states already knew that because of the pandemic, there was going to be a huge amount of people that did mail-in and absentee. There was going to be an influx. So let's kind of shift our laws to make sure that we can accommodate all of those votes. So some states were like, okay, as the early votes and the mail-in votes and absentee come in, we will go ahead and count and tally them. We will put them to the tally, keep them in the room. And then on the actual day of the election, when it's time to do the count, those ones are already counted. All we have to do is add the same day totals. And hey, by 11 o'clock, by 11:30, possibly midnight, we can call the race. There were other states that decided, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to count any of the early votes until election day. And so votes just sat in a room in a bunch of crates for weeks and weeks and weeks at a time. And in some states, it built up to the point where, again, you had more mail-in and absentee votes than the actual same-day voters. And the reason why that's significant is, again, when you're talking about same-day voting, most people use the machine. You go to the machine, tick, 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 and it's calculated, goes straight to the tally. There are some people who will request an actual hand ballot. They fill that out. But then again, still, it gets counted, but it's something where there's not an influx of those. So again, the reason that they can call these states so early when the election first happens and everything isn't counted is they're looking at the trends and the data that are coming out of those machines. This time in 2020, you couldn't do that because you had 2/3 of the vote literally coming in absentee and mail-in, and those aren't something that you can just count in a machine. You have to literally take it and slide it into the machine. And depending on what state you're in, the machines can only count 13,000 per hour. In addition, some states decided to be super difficult and say, in addition to not counting the ballots until election day, we're going to push for legislation that makes it so if it's not counted by the end of November 3rd, it just won't be counted at all. That was a very corrupt way of trying to do things. And again, most of those laws and everything got thrown out in the court of law. The court was like, okay, now y'all pushing it. You're pushing it. That's just not going to add up. And so we fast forward to election day. Current president decides he sees enough red states. They want to declare victory. They want to do the victory speech and so on because, he's been partying all week anyway. He was YMCA and just all week. He just knew he had I've been doing these rallies. Okay, so it looks like he's winning this thing. And people went to bed stressed out on Tuesday. Folks was getting cussed out. And then later down the line, what happened is they hadn't started counting the mail-in ballots yet. And it turned out that the mail-in and absentee ballots were just dramatically, just overtly Democratic, mainly because, again, they turned the election into something so bipartisan that even the way people voted was a bipartisan issue. And so now you have all these Democrat ballots coming in. And so out of nowhere, and mind you, there's still Republicans that are doing absentee early voting. In addition to what I said, I think on the last video, you had a lot of Republicans that did vote for Joe Biden, but they still voted Republican down ballot. And so even those are still going in there. So it wasn't like there was some discrepancy where every single mail-in ballot, every single absentee ballot was a Biden Democrat ticket vote and, it was all rigged. And so what's been happening is the president has been saying that all of those votes are fake. It's not real. That things just did not add up. It's a scam, so on and so forth. And he's put that narrative out there. And now you have a bunch of people running and falling in line and believing that a lot of this is true. And the thing that I would say is this is a pattern of what you've seen him do before. 2015, 2016, he was already doing the same thing. I don't think Donald Trump knew that he was going to win in 2016. And so if you remember, he kept tweeting the election is rigged. This isn't fair. This is going to be the biggest scam in the history of the United States. He was already putting the verbiage out there just in case that he lost. He could push that out there and it could tie back to crooked Hillary and everybody else on that side that are a bunch of liars and so on and so forth and lock them up. So he was already doing that pattern. In addition, the part that I find funny, if there was so much corruption, why is Mitch McConnell still in office? That was my thing. I was like, if they were going to vote anything, you would have put Mitch McConnell out. Because to be honest, if you still had Trump in office and you had a Senate where McConnell was not the majority leader anymore, Trump wouldn't be able to do much anyway. And so, again, you're seeing the foolery. But again, there's some additional issues that I have with the whole idea of everything being rigged. This is the same president that dismantled his pretty much election integrity commission in 2018, because he started one because he wanted to prove that, the votes that he did not get, because remember, he lost the popular vote in 2016. He wanted to claim that those 2.9 million votes were all fake votes. They were all Mexicans who weren't supposed to be here and fake votes and people who were voting twice and dead people and people who didn't even live in America. And so he started an entire commission. And when that commission could not find anything, then he got rid of it. However, had that commission still been in play, that would have been the same commission that would have been trying to verify the votes about right now. And then on top of that, in February of 2020, the Senate voted against 3 election protections bills. 3 different bills they voted against, saying, nope, we're not going to do it. Nope, we're not going to do it. Nope, we're not going to do it. So I don't want to hear anything about all of a sudden you think the election is rigged when you allow an environment for the election and the vote to not be protected. But again, I don't think anything is rigged. I just think this man has lost. Privilege doesn't allow him to accept that. And so he's going to push the narrative because whiteness in America is that strong where he could possibly have some pull and do whatever it is he does to pretty much get closer to what it is that he wants. I wrote a few things down here. I want to make sure I'm not skipping anything. I want to make sure all my facts are right because y'all love to try to fight me down in the comment section. I got time. Skip. Okay, good. I got all that. Perfect. Here, I'll just read a piece of the article. Senate Republicans blocked an effort by Democrats to unanimously pass 3 election security-related bills on Tuesday, making the latest attempt to clear legislation ahead of the November elections. Democrats tried to get consent to pass 2 bills that require campaigns to alert the FBI, Federal Election Commission, about foreign offers of assistance, as well as legislation to provide more election funding and ban voting machines from being connected to the internet. But Senator Marsha Blackburn, Republican from Tennessee, opposed each of the requests. Under the Senate's rules, any one senator can ask for unanimous consent to pass a bill, but any one senator can object and block the request. Blackburn accused Democrats of trying to move the bills, knowing that GOP lawmakers would block them, giving them the folder of fundraising efforts. And so again, it's like I don't even want to hear anything about it, but I still got a bit more. And so then you get to what we call now, we got the recount. So you have the state of Georgia. And again, Georgia was looking like it was going to be red until they started counting them Atlanta Metro votes, which again, Atlanta Metro is like the blackest thing in the United States next to Baltimore. You know what I mean? And so you got DeKalb County, Fulton County, Gwinnett County, all these areas that are heavily Democrat, they end up voting for Joe Biden. And so you end up seeing Georgia shift and go blue. Same thing with Pennsylvania. You see Pennsylvania shift and go blue. And the reason that I don't really buy into all of the foolery that is what they're trying to say about a state like Pennsylvania being rigged is that Pennsylvania has pretty much voted blue in every election since the early 90s. I don't think Pennsylvania's been red since Reagan or Bush won. And so, again, it's been their pattern to be blue every time, aside from 2016. Pennsylvania in the last 20 years has been a blue state. You know, Trump was able to win over, I guess, the blue collar voter and so on and so forth in 2016, but a lot of them were over, I guess. And you also saw the large influx of black voters to the polls this past election. And so what you notice is as they count the votes of black voters, now all of a sudden it's voter fraud. Now all of a sudden everything is rigged. Now all of a sudden things don't align. And so for this person to be the same president that keeps talking about he's done so much for black America and nobody's done more for the black Americans than him, it's interesting to see how, you know, that energy shifts once the votes come in. Now it's the hell with it. I bet you he's burning up that platinum plan. Thank you, whoever just brought that. I didn't get a chance to read who sent that. And so you see a bunch of foolishness, and you've seen there's been the last time I checked the count, there were 16 lawsuits. They've all been thrown out because there's no merit. There's no evidence. There's no proof. And it's funny that he's quiet on North Carolina, which is going to go red. And it's funny that he's quiet on Alaska, that just went red. And it's interesting that the states in which he won, there's no fraud. There's no conversation, nothing sketchy. The states which he lost, all of a sudden, we need to go and investigate. Thank you, Esmont. Thank you, Tootie. And you're just seeing the foolishness. And then you have him tweeting the whole recounts and we're going to do recounts and it's scam. And he's just tweeting any and everything. And I don't know if you guys saw this clip on Fox News. Now there's two clips. One is real, one is fake. The fake one is the one that sounds like Donald Trump with his voice disguised. The real one is one that sounds like a woman. And she's claiming that, I want to say, I don't know if it was Pennsylvania or Nevada, Arizona, one of these states. And she's claiming, you know, I was there. I saw the voter fraud. There was a Joe Biden, Kamala Harris van that was parked out front. And there were people inside, you know, right on the side of the van. And they had all of these ballots and they were ripping up the ballots and everything. And I was like, this is a very, very Scooby-Doo mysteries kind of story. So you mean to tell me that, you know, a marked van with the names of the candidates that are in question would be parked in front of the polling station where people would be out in the open changing ballots and just doing whatever they're doing to steal the vote? I'm like, this is some of the stupidest stuff I've seen. And then again, when you're just talking the numbers, Trump was tweeting about, you know, there were 50,000 fake votes in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. And again, to combat that, when these companies, not these companies, but when the election little agencies and everything, when they release the amount of ballots that are out, they have a count of every ballot that goes out, which ballots have not been utilized, which ballots are missing. All of that is already in, it's counted. It's not like you can print out fake ballots that would be verified. It's not like you can just go and get 100,000 fake ballots. And by the way, who has the time to do that? If you're looking at the rooms where the people are counting, these are rooms with 20 and 30 people. You think 30 people wanted to willingly sit and make up 50,000 ballots to have somebody lose? First of all, they thought they were going to be home by Tuesday night, and they're still counting on Saturday, Sunday. Now, get out of here. It's just foolery, right? And so I think his purpose at the moment is to stir up chaos, as usual. And then there's other things that people have put out there. Somebody was like, oh, there's a clip of ballots being burned and so on. And then it turned out that video wasn't even real. That was just some other foolery. And then there's another one where it was like, oh, there were ballots thrown in the trash. And it turned out that those were sample ballots, so on and so forth. But again, we have lived in an era of disinformation for the last 4 years where you've had a president, and I know I'm frying him up. And as I fry him up, don't come on here trying to bring up what about Joe Biden, because I ain't one of his disciples either. He can catch some smoke too. And so, you know, literally for 40 years, you've had an era of disinformation where you've had an entire cabinet and administration lie about literally everything. Everything from even the amount of people who went to the inauguration. You got Sean Spicer up there. This was the most attended inauguration, period, in history. And I'm like, bruh, more people went to Diana Ross's Central Park concert back in the 80s than they went to the inauguration. And there's video footage to prove it. And mind you, Diana had to do it 2 nights because it got rained out on the first night. More people still showed up the second night than people went to the inauguration. But this has been a team that has lied about everything. They came up with stupid phrases like alternative facts. And literally everything that comes out of their mouth is some BS. over and over and over. And you watch this man put so many incompetent people into positions of power. And my beef is this. The media, they can catch some smoke too because they allowed this nonsense to happen because they were looking at ratings rather than integrity. So CNN can catch it, MSNBC can catch it, Fox News has been catching it since they've been in existence. But literally the only, in my opinion, the only news source that has pretty much been credible and never really bought into the foolishness would have been Democracy Now! But like literally, you just have lies upon lies upon lies for 4 years. And when that becomes routine, and when people already look to somebody like Donald Trump, like Jesus, especially when you talk about a lot of white Americans who literally are married to this man, it's not even a conversation of Democrat and Republican. It's a conversation of Donald Trump versus everybody else. They literally worship this man, look up to him. He is everything to them. So no matter what he says, no matter what people from his team say, they look at it as truth. And so it's easy for him to go and tweet, the election is rigged, the election is rigged, and people will eat it up. That's why you got the whole Proud Boy foolishness coming up here to DC on Saturday to go protest because they think the election is rigged. Like that's literally how easy it is to manipulate an entire demographic of people because we are in the age of information where there's a lot of information that is truthful that is out there, but there's a lot of fluff and there's a lot of stuff out there that is not truthful that people buy into. And when you play into the vulnerabilities of people, people will literally go in whatever direction they want to believe, you know, when it comes to wanting to hear what it is that makes them feel that something makes sense in their world. That's literally where we're at. And so you just see the foolishness. But if we want to talk corruption, if we want to talk a rigged election, this is bigger than just 2020, because really a lot of this has been years in the making. When you talk about the gerrymandering that has been going on for decades. Now, gerrymandering has always been a thing, but the initial purpose of gerrymandering was resizing the districts to fit with what the needs were for the people. That transitioned into, let me redraw the district so I can put certain voter demographics in one block and we can get all them out the way and we can make a bunch of smaller districts and we can pretty much override and take over whatever the will of the people is with whatever party's in power based on how we draw the lines. Look at some of the gerrymandered districts that were in the state of North Carolina. Look at what they did in Michigan. Like some of these little districts, it'd be like a piece of it's over here and then it flies way over here and then it flies down here, it flies up here, it flies back over. And then what's usually the common denominator? That's the pocket where all the black folks live. And why is that? Because, you know, collectively, a lot of black people tend to vote Democrat. And so you have that foolishness. You have, again, Postmaster DeJoy, who literally compromised the entire United States Postal Service. We talked about it on the last live. It's bigger than just the election. It's also a money grab as well. They want to privatize the mailing system because, again, that would be a multi-trillion-dollar business. But in addition, they already knew that because this was going to be a pandemic-related vote and so many people were going to vote by mail and absentee, if we just make sure that the mail doesn't get there, we can do whatever we want. And so you literally watch them compromise the entire U.S. Postal Service. Everybody should have noticed that by the time you got around October, your mail started coming in a lot slower, right? You saw what they did in the state of Texas, where you had districts pretty much where they wanted only one polling place per district. And some of those districts have up to 1 million people in it. Harris County, I believe. You saw that happening. You saw states coming out with a lot of extra punitive laws right before the election. Of course, the voter suppression is still a thing. The voter ID law is still a thing. What else did I say? And then again, even just the limited access to polling and canceling things like, you know, some early votes in some states were canceled. Things like souls to the polls. They know that that's when you get the older demographic of black Americans who tend to be what you would call, I guess, black evangelicals, not to be confused with white evangelicals. Two totally different demographics, but they tend to vote Democrat. And again, this is not a conversation about Republican versus Democrat. I'm just pointing out the corruption, all right? Because again, I'm not in either. I vote independently. I vote for what makes sense. And so, you know, you saw that foolery. You saw what happened in North Carolina, where the people were doing the early vote. Somehow they tried to push it as the people were protesting. Next thing you know, you got kids and people's grandmas getting pepper sprayed by the police, people getting arrested. You have the voter intimidation again. You have a president that's telling random everyday average people, go to the polls and stand out there and watch. Because again, when you push the narrative of an us versus them, good versus bad, if you're with Trump, you're great and everything. If you're against Trump, you hate America and you're for tyranny and you're a communist and you're part of communist China and you're part of like the Black Lives Matter who want to murder all the police and kill Whitey and everything. Now you have people flocking to these areas, showing up with AR-15, standing there, starting stuff. You saw people blocking the roads for people to get access to where they could even vote. You saw people standing there telling people, wrong information. You saw robocalls coming out telling people, oh, the election has been moved to this day, or you're not in the voter so-and-so, so don't worry about showing up. You saw voter rolls be purged, just like Brian Kemp did in the state of Georgia, where you saw 200,000 people get purged from the voter rolls, most of them coming out of Gwinnett County in Georgia. And so we're not going to talk about corruption when literally everything I just named came from one side of the aisle, literally one side of the aisle. And now they want to sit here and play this game like everything is corrupt. And you've seen literally every secretary of state, every person who's over any elections committee in those states say there are no signs of corruption. There's no signs of cheating. There's no signs of voter fraud. And again, when you talk voter fraud, before 2020, when you look at the billions of votes that have taken place in the last 60 years, there have been 34 cases of voter fraud. 34. And so now all of a sudden you guys want to push this narrative that there are hundreds of thousands of votes that are all fake. Who has the time to fake ballots and fake votes? You know what I mean? It's just, it's a reality where the current president just doesn't believe that people are just tired of his foolery. And I think, again, he didn't win the popular vote the first time. He lost it. And this is one of the conversations why, again, something like the Electoral College just has to go. Because if the Electoral College was not a thing, this would not be a conversation. Election would have already been decided. Again, the purpose of the Electoral College, it was said that, okay, it was a way to make the smaller states feel that, they had the same power as a state like California. But what has happened is, depending on where you live, your vote actually carries more weight than some states. If you live in Iowa, your vote carries more weight than somebody who lives in California, based on the demographics of population versus the number of actual electoral votes. And so that is not, it's some nonsense. And at this point, in the last 7 of 8 elections, you've seen the Democrat team win the popular vote. The only time they've lost the popular vote was George Bush versus Kerry back in 2004. Everything else otherwise has been Democrat, but you've seen Al Gore lose, you saw Hillary lose, and now you see they're trying to snatch this from Joe. And again, I'm not the biggest Joe disciple, but again, when I see some foolery, it's just foolery. What else did I write on here? There's so much stuff, man. Hold on, let me go to the comments for a section. Sorry, guys, I meant to come back to you guys. Yeah, it is like a cult. Like, these people are loony, like just crazy. And I think for me, as a black man living in America, who's always been told that you have to work twice as hard to be considered half as good, to see the mediocrity that is in power and the lack of intelligence that are literally calling the shots for everybody, it's something that's triggering each and every day where all of these people are stupid. I'm not talking about the voters. I'm talking about the people in charge. The voters, they're going to do what is put in, whatever their situation is, however they see the world, that's going to be their experience. I still got smoke for them too, but the leadership, just the foolery that's there. It's like a lot of these people aren't even intelligent and they're calling the shots. They have their hands on, conversations and entities that sit in the realms of billions and trillions of dollars that affect all of us each and every day. And they get to just do whatever they want. That is some crap that's triggering. Let's see. Because I'm about to get on Paula White. She's about to get fried up too. I'm sick of her foolery too. Thank you, Cameron Bass for Bass. Where we at? Emotional 2000 said Texas has over 1 million people affected by COVID. I haven't even talked about COVID that much tonight, but yeah, like, and these COVID numbers, I'm glad I live where I live, but absolutely crazy. Apparently, I guess I got trolls in here, so I'm gonna make a few more people moderators. All right. Let's see. Anybody who wants to who's fake? Who do I recognize in here that's about that life? All right. Let's see. Let's try you. Don't. Dang, this thing is moving quick. Dang, y'all are scrolling fast. Hold on, I'm about to get back on my point here. This thing is scrolling. Okay. Anyway, getting back to where I was going. So the next conversation that I want to jump into is when we talk about what you call these evangelical leaders. Let me tell you where my beef is. Beef number one is, hold on, let me get a few more, y'all. Last one right here. Michelle, I got you. Or Michelin. Okay, so here's my beef. So as this election carried on, you saw a few things, right? We saw the clip of Paula White, who had like this emergency prayer session for the election because Donald Trump was losing at the moment. And so she's doing all of this prayer and she's calling the African angels to come down and she's calling all these random people and everything else like that. And I declare victory and whatever she's saying, right? And she wasn't the only one. Like you see, there was another clip where I saw literally a preacher who was crying, God, please, these people are evil. They are not pro-life. But then in the next sentence, they are not pro-military. And I said, wait, time out. That's a discrepancy right there. No disrespect to our troops. I support those who are willing to take a bullet for this country because I'm certainly not doing it. However, I don't understand how you can be pro-life and anti-abortion, but at the same time, you support going and blowing up children in the Middle East. You go and support destroying, not even democracies, but destroying ways of government and the way of living for people around the world, bringing instability, and hundreds of thousands of people die and starve and become refugees and everything else. And everybody's fine with that. Nobody has an issue with that at all. That's perfectly fine. But all of a sudden, you got smoke for abortion. I'm going to get to that in a second. And then you saw there was another person who was out there. He was just delusional. He just decided he was just going to laugh and say they think they won. Ha, ha, ha. And so there's a beef I have. One, the church is already tax exempt. Churches don't pay taxes. But what's going to happen is if these giant mega churches continue to be so political, I could see it coming down the line where churches are no longer tax exempt. And who does that actually hurt? It's not going to really hurt these big churches. But when you talk about mom and pop storefront, grandma's church that you grew up in, those are the congregations that will actually suffer. Those are going to be the people that really feel it because, again, a lot of those storefront churches are barely making it now when it comes to finances. But again, somebody like a Paula White, I think a lot of these people are full of crap. No disrespect. They have literally pounced on the vulnerabilities of people spiritually. And this is not to attack anybody's religion because, again, I grew up in the church. My mother is a minister. Like, that's all I know. But again, when you talk about these white evangelicals, I need people to understand that based on what would be in the biblical text and based on what people are supposed to do and so on and so forth, there is nothing Christian-like about any of them. And the funniest thing is they only latch on to two topics. They latch on to gay marriage. They latch on to abortion. Gay marriage, abortion. Nothing else nothing else matters, but they draw the line on abortion and gay marriage. So when you got little kids in a cage separated by their parents, and I don't care where you stand on immigration. I know there's a lot of people who are anti-immigrant, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, when you have children who have been separated from their parents, and it's to the point where the parents can't even be located, and children are now forever lost, and some of them have been adopted by Americans who think that they're helping, and so you literally strip a 3-year-old from their parent. They don't know where the mom and dad is because, again, there wasn't a very good system in place to kind of keep everything organized, keep things, keeping records. And so you have lost children, you have lost parents. Some parents have been deported to wherever. Some children have been, they may have been snatched up on the Texas border and now they're living in Wisconsin with a new family that they don't know. And so literally you break up and you separate families all in the name of politics, not in the name of the well-being of the country or the well-being of the people, but you literally have families that will never be put back. They're never coming back together, some of those people. From what I read, there's 666, the irony, children that are permanently unaccounted for where the parents cannot be located. And at this point, some of these families have been split up for 3 years. And you have to think, what does that mean for somebody who's a toddler? Most likely, if they've been separated from their parents for 3 years, they're not going to remember their parents when they get back in the same graces with them. It would kind of be like, remember losing Isaiah with Halle Berry? Remember, like, Halle Berry, unfortunately, she wasn't fit to be a mother at the time. And I think she put the baby in the dumpster or something like that. And then the white woman adopted the baby. And then at the end, the court was like, no, the baby needs to go with the real mother. But Isaiah didn't know the mother. And so it wasn't a good reunion. Same kind of thing. And you've seen clips where, families do get reunited and the kids don't remember their parents. And people are always talking about terrorism and this, that, and the third. Just understand that all of these hurt families grow up to be vengeful. These children who've gone through whatever they've gone through will grow up to be vengeful adults. And it's going to be, that's some blood on some people's hands. But again, it's interesting that when you talk about the whole evangelical thing, again, there's only two issues. Again, gay marriage, abortion. People starving they could care less about. People, the working poor pretty much being manipulated by politics and being screwed over every time, healthcare being snatched away, gun violence, none of that matters. It doesn't matter. That's not where they draw the line. They only hold on to those two things. And a lot of that, in my opinion, ties into the realm of whiteness anyway. It has nothing to do with the good of common man or any kind of spiritual anything. Because to be honest, religiously, these are not the people I would want to spend eternity with. That sounds like hell to me. I'm sorry. And so you see the foolery, and mind you, and my beef is that these people carry influence. Again, they latch onto the vulnerabilities of people, and so a lot of people turn to religion because things may not add up in their life. You know, maybe they've lost a relative, maybe they've gotten divorced, maybe they've lost everything, they've lost their job, maybe their house burned down, maybe they have mental illness, maybe they've never had friends, maybe they've never known love, maybe just things don't add up. They go to religion. They find whatever spiritual entity it is that works for them. Some people find it in Buddhism. Some people find it in Hinduism. Some people find it in Islam, Christianity, Judaism. So be it. But within Christianity, people find it in that. And then these preachers, or whatever you want to call them, they literally scam these people. Like, it's like Joel Osteen when you had those hurricanes coming to Texas. And he was like, y'all ain't about to use my church as no shelter. Nope, not doing that. And I'm like, but you, man of the people. You have millions of dollars, and that money comes from people who are vulnerable, who already didn't have it to give in the first place. Because when you're looking at these congregations, a lot of the times, again, it's working poor, working class Americans, because that is the demographic that is the most religious. And they're literally giving their last dollar to these people who don't even look out for what would be their flock. When you want to talk about the shepherd and the spiritual priest and so on and so forth, they're not even looking out for the people. And it ain't just the white ones. It's Creflo Dollar and some of them too. I'll give Creflo Dollar some smoke too. It was some foolery for him to make his church raise $69 million so that he could get a private jet, because the old jet was raggedy. And his justification was, well, I fly around the world. I do my ministry. And, I need a new jet so I can go and minister to the world. And it's like, but with $69 million, you could have employed hundreds of people to go and do that same very thing. And that message could have spread a lot further. You were only one person. And so, again, your ego has gotten in the way. This has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with you trying to push any kind of spiritual narrative to want people to do better. That's your ego, and that's greed. Like, where does the threshold begin where it goes from greed to, or from, getting whatever it is that is earned to just being greed? Because, again, I'm not against people who are in, any kind of religious organization being wealthy or being successful. But if it comes at the expense of the constituents in which, they serve, and everybody in the church is poor, and they got 2 and 3 houses and a private jet and maid service, then something don't really add up. You know what I mean? And so, again, like Paula White, my beef with her is she built her career on the backs of Black churches. Okay, because she kind of had a Pentecostal approach. Pentecostal, for those who aren't really in the church like that, Pentecostal just means a little bit more live. You're going to do a little bit more yelling. The music's going to be, you're going to have a little bit more crankage with the music and everything like that. White churches didn't know what to do with her, because at the time that she was coming up, this is the era of the Jimmy Baker, Tammy Faye, who also were crooks. You know what I mean? Where they kind of did the more, God is peaceful and love, and if we all come together, all will be what, even though they were over there just scamming and taking all the money. I won't speak too ill on Tammy since she's dead at this point, but you know what I mean? Like, they literally, same foolery. So somebody like a Paula White, who did she go to? She went to the Black church, because Black folks love it when white folks go in there and do a little grunting and growling and can step a little bit and do a foot stepping and stump a hole in the floor. They love that, okay? Black people collectively have always been welcoming to everybody, not even just the church, but even in music. That's why Black people love Tina Marie. That's why Black people love Lisa Stansfield. That's why Black people love, who's What You Won't Do for Love? Bobby Caldwell. Same thing. You know what I mean? Black people have always been welcoming to people as long as you don't overstep your boundaries. And so you build your entire brand on the Black church. And then you go on a line with a white nationalist. Nothing more entertaining than watching the current president get in office, and then the first thing she says is, hallelujah, Jesus is back in the White House. I said, who? Jesus? Trump? Okay, so the man with like the 3 babies mamas and the porn star that he didn't had to pay off and everything else that he has going. Okay, he's Jesus. All right, grab him by the you-know-what. Very godlike. Very godlike. That sounds about right. Okay, Paula. So she's full of crap. And again, it's just like the foolery that's there. It's just, you built an entire career on the vulnerabilities of people, and you could care less about the people. And Paula's only doing all that because I'm sure she's getting a good paycheck. It's a good paycheck. When you get to be the spiritual advisor to the president, many doors are open for you. You get to go to many rooms. You get to be in many spaces. So for her, it's nothing to do with any kind of Jesus, nothing. She's full of crap. Most of those evangelical preachers are. And evangelicals, a lot of y'all can catch the smoke too, because again, y'all seem to only care about 2 issues, abortion and gay marriage. Nothing else on the table matters. And like, again, I think a lot of it just ties to the fact that there's a hidden element of racism in all of it. Heavy element of racism. And so you're seeing that. That's why somebody like Malcolm X said, the most segregated day in America is Sunday. Okay? You're seeing the foolery. What else did I write down here? And get this. Even when you talk influence, I know y'all saw the clips from across the water. Okay? Cousins over in Africa and on the continent, you saw people in Nigeria having pro-Trump parades, whole Trump parades. And I'm like, This man has y'all on the travel ban list. Y'all can't even come over here no more. He has you on the travel ban list and y'all over here worshiping this man, really? And again, it goes back to what I said about how Christianity was introduced to a lot of groups of people. For a lot of people who come from any kind of element of African descent, Christianity was introduced from a very punitive standpoint where it's do this or you go to hell, do this or you go to hell. And it's 10 times worse over on the continent. And so if you had a chance to see some of the verbiage that's coming from some of the people from across the water, it's, Trump needs to be in there because the Democrats, based on how they see it, the Democrats are baby killers that do the gay marriage thing, and there's trans people going in the bathroom with little kids and all kind of stuff, and they having sex with the dogs, and there's all kind of wild things happening over there, and Meg the Stallion over there with the wet you-know-what, and Cardi B busting it wide open, and drugs, and it's all those Democrats, but Trump is the one that knows Jesus, so we gotta protest and support Trump, even though we're not allowed to come over here anymore. And even though the administration has purposely made it difficult for anybody coming from that continent to even come over here. It's already 3 times harder for immigrants from the continent of Africa to come to the United States, but the administration wants to make it harder. But y'all go ahead and keep protesting and supporting him all you want to. I also see that the funding that's been going to your country's gotten cut as well, but y'all go ahead and do your thing. There's still love for y'all, but figure it out, okay? Find your own identity, please. Stop trying to assimilate the whiteness. It's not going to get you anywhere. Let me see. Where was I going with this? Let's see. I'm gonna keep moving. So I hate to do a religious talk. I don't like doing that because I don't like to tear down what people believe in. But again, it's just you have to be able to have discernment with what it is you believe in. And sadly, there's a lot of people who are being led by what you would call false prophets and everything else like that. And again, this is a country where you have 32 million people that are not even literate, that can't even read. So when you're talking about, again, the age of information, it's easy for people to be manipulated by foolery. And that's what this administration has done all across the board, where literally they didn't do anything in the last 4 years. The people who benefited under this administration, it was Wall Street. It was rich people. You had the tax cuts that started in 2017. Rich people got richer. The rest of us, we're in the same boat we're in, and we're really about to feel it because the thing that happened with that tax cut, or that the tax cut, is that if you're middle class, if you're working class, if you're working poor, your taxes are going to start going up every year starting in 2021, each year, if that plan still stays in play. Literally, because again, he was just such a loving president. He told us that, that little $1,200 that we saved in taxes in 2017, which really were just money. It was really just money that was withheld or that wasn't withheld, and you still ended up paying it. And when you filed your taxes anyway, that was going to save us all. That was going to boost the economy, and it didn't. And so here we are, just for these same rich people to get another bailout because of COVID. Like, some foolery. I can't stand it. Like, you gotta be kidding me. But again, and I think when you're talking about just the allegiance that people have to this man, again, it's not a Republican Democrat thing, because Republicans, a lot of them at this point don't even like this man, but some of them have no backbones. They don't want to lose their election because Trump's base has pretty much jumped up in there, and it is what it is. But literally, these people have an allegiance to this man. It doesn't matter what Democrats do or what Republicans do. It's what Trump does. And Trump is literally their Jesus. And I think that's because, just like we said with policing, a lot of these white folks, and oddly enough, there's some black folks and everybody else in that mix too, they see Trump as an extension of themselves. But really what I see, again, is an extension of white nationalism. And because Trump has finally been that politician to come out there and say whatever he wants, how he wants, no filter. And again, when you have a media that didn't really check him like that, because really, if I had a network, he wouldn't have been on anything. Every time you spewing the foolishness, we cutting you off. They started doing that since the election, but it's like, you should have been doing that 4 years ago. But anyway, literally people see him as an extension of themselves. And for them, a lot of people already feel like whiteness is under attack. When they see something like people calling out police brutality, because a lot of white Americans see the police as an extension of themselves, calling out police brutality feels like you're attacking white people. You know what's funny? I get cussed out in my emails probably 3 or 4 times a week by people who are disgruntled, who don't like what I say on this channel. And they don't want to put it in the comment section on the video because they know a lot of times when they put foolish things, people who already are subscribed will go and fry them up. So they send me personal emails. Would you guys like to hear the last email that I recently received? I think I got this one early this week. Who wants to hear my most recent email? Let's have some fun, shall we? It's not a yes or no. You're going to hear it anyway. I could be petty because she was foolish and she put her full government name and where she works and where she lives in the email, but I'm not going to do it on here because I'm not that pressed. Some people just ain't playing with a full deck. So you know what? Let them work with what they got. I hope I didn't delete it. Where's it at? It was a long one too. She was frying me up. She was letting me have it. Where's this girl's email at? Dang, I hope I didn't delete it. Come on. Where is that girl's email at? I might have deleted it. No, that's not it. Dang, I hope I didn't get rid of it. Let me check my trash. I'll see ya. All right, let me see. Oh, found it. All right. Dang, I didn't even get to drink my tea. It's all cold now. All right. It was in the trash, y'all. It was in the trash. You know, I don't spend too much time on bad energy. If you don't like me, it is what it is. I ain't losing no sleep. I don't know you anyway. All right. So I'll just use her first name, Rebecca. Rebecca, you might be watching tonight. So, hey, you getting your shout out. Hi, Calvin. Normally, I like your videos because you are really cute and funny. Thank you. I appreciate it. You know, I've been working on these cheekbones. But lately, you have been spewing a lot of anti-white talking points, and it's really starting to piss me off, exclamation point. So white people begin moving into, and I think this was in response to when I talked about the opportunity zones and gentrification on the Lil Wayne video. So white people begin moving into black neighborhoods, it's gentrification, in quotes. But if y'all move into our neighborhoods, it's perfectly okay. You are so full of crap. I live in Nashville, and I can tell you that white developers bringing their money to see these nasty, crime-filled streets was the best thing that could happen to black people in this city. So many good paying jobs for people of all races. So if you want to keep your trashy neighborhoods trashy, then move to Memphis. Look, Memphis, she calling y'all out. I just want y'all to know, no gentrification there, and it's still a crumbling city with a declining population and a low quality of life. Unless you want the country to keep injecting money into it to prop up such complete, I'm trying not to cuss, but oh well, shithole. If the black people don't want to live there anymore, why would any rational investor or taxpayers want to waste their money on such foolish gestures? No one is going to invest in a bunch of money. I'm trying to correct the grammar as she wrote this, so work with me or bear with me. No one is going to invest a bunch of money into communities that take pride into living in filth without having a plan on getting their money back. If you really want to make change, why not stop your whining? We talked about that word. Get some money from black investors to start a company that will help black, quote, victims of gentrification hold on to their property for a few years longer until they can make profit from selling it. Sell the homes for Sell the homes for that profit and invest it into creating a new black-run city so you can control the property taxes and keep them as low as you want. I don't know what world this girl is living in, but okay. Then when all of these residents trash their newfound city and crime is through the roof, you will see how worthless all of your work has been. But you're not going to do that because you want handouts from the rest of us, hardworking taxpayers. And don't dare say I have white privilege because I work hard for every damn thing I have. I scraped together pennies working at the blank because she was stupid enough to say where she worked. So don't even think about calling me effing lazy. I didn't inherit ish from my good for nothing family, so shut your mouth. One day I'm going to become rich, and the last thing I need is for a lazy, and this was creative, nignorant. That's creative, right? Creative, okay. Leech like you to convert this country into a communist S-word hole before I get my mansion in Miami Beach. Well, listen, Miami ain't even about to be here in 20 years. You might want to pick another city. Go live in effing Cuba or China if you like communism so god darn much. That's not what she said. Just leave America alone, please. You know, okay, this is when it gets kind of weird. I know, or you know, I bet you got a big old, you know what, and balls. But what you have in genital size, you lack in brain power. To be honest, that's what's wrong with the black community as a whole. Y'all think with the wrong head. European men, on the other hand, have always prided themselves on having a small package because it is indicative of intelligence and ability to delay gratification. It seems men are blessed with one or the other, or like you have the former. But that is not the concept that I think you would be able to understand. If only one race was born with both, I might be able to find me a husband. And they just put an LOL like we all of a sudden friends and we laughing together. Anyways, I just wanted to let you know how full of crap you are and how you're sabotaging your own effing race and to tell you to quit your bitching. Sorry, guys. I know y'all don't like when I cuss, but I'm just reading in this context. White people won't be I guess she's trying to say on this planet much longer. So stop making excuses and just fix your problems for yourself already. But I think even you are smart enough to realize that this planet is going to go to complete ish when we are gone. So you are hoping that we can drag you out of your impending doom. Not going to happen. If you think white supremacy is bad, wait till you try Asian communist supremacy. I hope you enjoy eating egg rolls and watching CCP TV while working at a cotton factory for 12 cents an hour. Effing moron. Rebecca. So I mean, she was salty. I was like, what the hell? Like, because first I read it, I was like, oh, okay, all right. But again, that's kind of one of the things that you run into, because when you're talking like, and if you follow me, you know, when we talk race on here, we talk race from a standpoint of structure. You know what I mean? Because again, this is not a conversation about individuals, because individuals technically don't have power, but a structure that benefits individuals, that's where the power is. And again, some people don't have the brain capacity to understand that, and so they center themselves in everything. So when you have a conversation about the wrongs that are taking place in the United States, because you're calling that out, and again, like we said, there are certain people in this country who see the United States as an extension of themselves. They see the police as an extension of themselves. They see Donald Trump as an extension of themselves. Automatically, they center themselves in any kind of critique and think you're attacking them, which means you're attacking America. This is why you saw so much smoke in regards to the whole national anthem debate. And so many people, they disrespected the flag. And it's like, okay, but those same people that are disrespecting the flag are also citizens, and they have the right to do so if they feel that the country does not represent them. But that's kind of the foolery that you see. And again, it goes back to that conversation of like the good versus evil, us versus them, so on and so forth. People are just loony. Absolutely loony. And I do want to say this, when you talk about the conversation of privilege, privilege is not just limited to wealth. That's the bigger conversation. But privilege is just the experience of recognizing that, hey, depending on how you looked in this past election, if you voted and depending on where you lived, there weren't going to be any claims of voter fraud, because, you know, you did exactly what was expected of you and you played into that system. However, if you were from another city, looked a certain way and voted a certain way, your vote must not be accurate. Somebody must have cheated. That's a privilege right there. You know, a privilege would be something like, and again, I'm not trying to turn this so political, but again, somebody like a Barack Obama who goes to 2 Ivy League schools, so on and so forth, but then people don't even feel he's intelligent enough to be president and say he needs to release his college transcript. Meanwhile, the current president, who clearly is not playing with a full deck, gets to do Lord knows what, whenever, however, and there's no question to anything, you know. And so that's the reality. Anyway, let me jump into some comments. People are funny. I didn't really want to put Rebecca out there like that because I'm not pressed. Because really, I get like emails like that like every week. There's always a bunch of them. Sometimes I get like the death threats, and it's like, you know, I'm gonna come find you and slit your effing throat. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I got a good life insurance policy. My mom would be taken care of. That's fine. But anyway. Yeah, she's a lunatic, I'm telling you. But the funny part, I'm like, why would you put where you work? You know what I mean? Like, what she put like her full name too, full name, city, where she works. I'm like, you ain't playing with a full deck. Jeez. And then you saw how she was quick to sexualize me, right? Too. That's another conversation. You know, there's a lustful attraction to black men by certain folks. They just be obsessed with us. Because I'm like, the fact that whole part ain't even got to that, I'm like, where did that come from? But anyway. Don't worry, I'm not gonna put her email. I know y'all want her email, y'all want to fry her up. I'm not pressed. It's not even that deep. The minute that she said she was gonna have the mansion in Miami Beach, I already knew where the intelligence was at. So there's that. No disrespect to Miami. We love y'all, but I'm just saying. Anyway, let's see. Ignorant. That was funny. I said, okay. Got just convincing. Speaking of Florida, I want to shift over. You see DeSantis, who is another terrible person who just, God, some of these people, I don't know how these people keep getting elected. My God. It says, breaking news. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has drafted a law that would allow citizens to kill looters in an expansion of the state's stand your ground law. That law would allow armed citizens to shoot suspected looters or anyone engaged in criminal mischief to businesses. So you know what that means. You know who that's aimed at. You know who that's for. So I will just say, folks, be careful, because literally, again, open season on black folks. That's what that's about. And so now it's to the point where, you know, businesses that tend to normally be insured, and, you know, if something goes down because there's civil unrest, you know, they can insure whatever happens. Now you're at a place where those businesses are more valuable than human lives. And so now people can literally use the stand your ground law. I mean, if this becomes law, as justification for shooting somebody, literally. And what you're going to see happen if that becomes law is you're going to see a lot of incidents where people are unjustifiably killed who were not doing anything just because the person suspected that they were up to something, suspected that they were going to do something. Kind of like that lawyer and her husband who had the guns out, I think in St. Louis, and then now they're pissed off because they went viral and they feel like their lives have been ruined. Same energy where you saw that whole Black Lives Matter movement going on after everything with George Floyd. People just walking through the streets protesting. And we talked about what happened at those protests and some of the beefs I had. You know, I had had some beefs with everybody doing the cha-cha slide and the Cupid shuffle and the electric slide and all the slides and all the shuffles just because the police took a knee. So literally, these were not protests where you saw a lot of violence. The violence came from agitating groups that pretty much infiltrated those movements. Like when you saw the whole police station set on fire, that was not people who were pissed off about police brutality. Those were agitators that went and set it on fire. You saw people who came from different groups from out of state, you know, with masks on, with those skateboards, busting up every window. Cop, 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 cop. But of course, that got blamed on all the black folks. And so literally, you're going to see people literally start shooting and killing random people because they think that their property's in danger. You might have also saw this clip one time where it was like a silent protest. I don't remember what state it was, but there was a mobile home park. And the people that lived in that mobile home park all stood outside of the neighborhood with their guns and AR-15s, waiting, hoping that somebody would do something. And again, it's like, this is the energy that we have. And so you just, when you talk about that Second Amendment and when you talk about where people stand on things, like America is just, it goes back to what I said in the last video. When people keep trying to push this narrative of America's united and America, we just have to get back to where we were never there. It was never a thing. Like I said, there was a point where Americans were just able to tolerate each other. You know, you stay in your lane, I'm gonna stay in mine, you stay over there, I'm gonna stay over here. However, there have been so many crooked politicians that have been in power where now there's so many punitive laws that are in play where everybody is impacted. And now you have people fighting and scraping for the same resources. And again, when you have a conversation about resources, race comes into the picture because now people who may not necessarily have gotten the best end of the deal from white America, but they see that there are some people who are doing better than them that they feel should not be doing better than them, that jumps in the way. And it's all of a sudden we're losing the country. How many times have you seen a viral clip where, I don't know, somebody's being racist to somebody in the store, another person, maybe another white person confronts them and is like, hey, that's not okay. And the next thing you hear them say, you're the reason we're losing the country. You know what I mean? So like America's never been united. America's segregated. It's more segregated now than it was before then. Just because the laws are allowing us to piss in the same toilet, things are not great. They really haven't been. And this is something that's been in the making for decades. Even when you're talking about the politics, the corruption that's out there within the leadership, this isn't all just under Trump. This has been going on for 20, 30, 40 years. Every single time you saw those small loopholes kind of get shifted and you saw different laws change and you saw the Voting Rights Act get stripped, you've seen all these different things take place when it comes to how school funding would shift and how the rules would change when it came to housing. These are things that have been going on for decades and decades and decades. And now you're seeing the end result of all of that coming together. But like I said, America's not united. Now, don't get me wrong. There are people who understand, you know, everybody comes from where they come from. And there are people who really push for that whole idea of unity. But collectively, the United States has never been that. They haven't. Like, look at how this election is going. In the past, people are usually pissed off about elections, but it's never been a thing where people are showing up with guns to go handle things. You know, if you go back to even Reagan, which is interesting. You know, when you look at his, I don't know if it was the first run or the second run, but whichever one it was, he got every freaking state except Minnesota one time. And of course, the country's still divided because a lot of people were pissed off that he got in, but it was never something where, you know, people literally are getting killed for their political view. It was still, I feel like that energy's always been there, but now this is something where it's just out front, it's in the open, and it's okay. We have an administration that's allowed that to happen. Oh, somebody said Van Jones. Thank you. I'm about to fry him up too. Let me get to him right now while you brought him up. Van Jones. So some of you may have seen there was a clip where, you know, I think Biden had just been called, you know, they called it for Biden, and Van Jones starts crying about, you know, how he can sleep better and stuff now. So I called him out on Twitter because I thought it was some bull crap. And a lot of people were like, you know, you're being harsh. You should allow like black men to be able to be emotional and to cry and have emotion. And that wasn't the argument on my end. I'm already somebody who always says I support black men using their emotion when they need to. I think it's good to release, because when you don't, that's why all these teenagers are punching walls now. They don't know how to process their energy, don't know how to process their rage or emotion, because they've always been told to speak with your chest and suck it up. So here was my beef with Van Jones. Van Jones is somebody who's an opportunist and plays into that foolery. He is somebody who will go wherever the wind blows as long as it's going to open a door. If the wind blows the door open, he's going to run through it. And so he has played this stupid political game this entire time. And I knew he was full of crap back in 2017. So, or maybe it might have been in 2016. So I had a friend that invited me to some event he was having. I think he had a book come out. And it was at that synagogue in DC. It's called like that Ninth and I or something like that. I don't know. But he had this event, right? And I didn't really know too much about Van Jones. All I knew was he was the guy that said, the electing of Trump was whitelash. I was like, oh, okay, he about it. Okay, let me see what he about to say. So I went to the little synagogue event, and the synagogue place is like a place where they have a bunch of just, guest speakers and stuff come. It's not anything religious. It's just they use it as a place for like community and stuff, right? And so I go, strike one, it was like me and the friend and like 3 people. I was like, where are the black people at? Ain't none of us in here. I was confused. I was like, I thought he, okay. It was like literally a sea of white women. I was like, okay, let's see how this goes. All right. And so, hold on, let me get my sip. So as he starts talking, and it's him and Jake Tapper from CNN, right? They're having this conversation, and they're talking about the state of America when it comes to where Americans stand in relation to race, unity, politics, Democrat, Republican, gender, all of that. And he goes on this whole spiel about everybody who's pissed off about Trump needs to understand what it's like to be the blue-collar white American and how they felt left out. And, we need to have empathy and reach across the aisle. And again, I always shut that argument down because I will always say, well, what about Black America, who's in the same predicament? And the difference between Black America and working class white America is that working class white America did not have a system built to work against them. They never had ordinances that told them that they couldn't live in certain neighborhoods. There were never laws that didn't allow them to get housing loans. There were never any laws that discriminated against them. Now, if you wanted to push the whole idea of, oh, well, they did it to the Irish, they did it to the Italians because they had, olive colored skin, that shifted when all of them decided to all be white together because they wanted to protest and fight against unions, or fight against Black people coming into worker unions. So, they decided we're going to be white now. Okay, I'm not Italian no more. We're white. They did that, no disrespect. And so they've never had a system built to disenfranchise them. That system is kind of taking place now where they are on the receiving end of some of those discrepancies because, again, when you've had so much corruption and power, it's not about the people and everybody suffers. So in reality, Black America, especially working class, working poor Black Americans, have that system working against them on top of a corrupt America that's now working against them. They got 2 things going against them. And so you can't make those equatable and then always give the pass to blue-collar white Americans who just felt that they were losing. I'm sorry. That whole play about Donald Trump, all of that was centered on race and centered on whiteness. That's what it was about. You can't make me change my mind on that. And so he jumped on that spill the whole time. But then later down the line, every time I would see him on CNN, he was always vouching for the president. When the president did the State of the Union, he was presidential. I mean, he became president of the United States tonight. No, he didn't. He just fried up everybody who wasn't one of his supporters for 2 hours. Are you serious? And so he literally played into this game every single time, and he straddles the fence when it comes to race. I know that race is a difficult thing to talk about. Maybe that's why I do it, because I don't lose sleep about it. I'm unapologetic about it. It is what it is, and I got the facts and the numbers to back what I'm saying. It's not coming from a place of hate. It's coming from a place of reality and a place of history. And if you don't like it, I don't know what to tell you. Woo, woo, woo. But there's a lot of people like him who straddle the fence and allow things to happen and don't say anything. But then when it's beneficial, when it's time to be symbolic, then he wants to jump on the black train and do the crocodile tears, and I can do whatever because now my son. I can't. I'm sorry. And then again, Joe Biden and crew, they're not really my candidates like that. Like, I'm happy that Trump is getting out, but for people to keep painting who's coming into office as the savior for Black America, no. Like, for me, this is a business as usual ticket. The good that may come out of it is that at least there will be stability in the country, but it's not going to shift the narrative too much where all of a sudden there's going to be Black prosperity. Because again, this is a system that we're talking about. And until that system is uprooted, we're always going to be here. You can do, and I'm sure Joe and Kamala will have a bunch of different policies that will benefit a lot of people. I've seen the conversations about cutting student debt. I support that fully. I think if you can cut some of the student debt, it helps a lot of people. Some people are saying, well, what about the people who paid off their student loans? I guess my response to that would be, one, I just know for me coming out of Howard, the rate of tuition at Howard has already doubled in the 10 years that I've come out. And so, yes, I know there's some people who are saying, well, I paid my loan, so on and so forth. But now some of these kids that are coming in to some of these schools, they're paying 4, 5, 8, 11 times as much as some people paid 20, 30 years ago, sometimes even 10 years ago. And again, I think because we're in a society where people want other people to suffer, you know, in order to get to where they are, like you got to suffer. You just don't get to ride up in it. You need to suffer a little bit more, you know, so on and so forth. I think there's some language and some exemptions and things that could possibly be made where you could do something to benefit people who have paid off their loans, because I agree. I think that the loans, a lot of times it's a scam, and a lot of people's interest rates were so high, and some people have paid more back than what was owed 2, 3, 4 times over. I definitely think there could be some legislation to really help people who paid off their loans. Maybe, I don't know, it goes to some kind of credit towards, you know, a house or taxes. I don't know, something. But again, I do think there's going to be some decent things that come out of this administration, but I don't see this as the Black utopian ticket that is going to fix all the problems in 4 years. Plus, they got a whole lot of crap they're going to have to fix in 4 years. And they're going to have to do it with a reluctant Senate, unless Georgia happens to flip, which I'm not sure how that's going to go. I'm hoping that they're able to do what they can do in Georgia. Georgia, I need y'all to pull up and roll out and do your thing. But again, for me, this comes off as business as usual. And for me, it seems like the next 4 years is going to be trying to get America back to where it was pre-2016. That's how I see it. And it's no diss to take anything away from that current ticket, but I think the verbiage, like, because even when I saw everybody in the streets parading and celebrating, cool, you know, people celebrating the Trump's out, cool. I stayed in the house because, like I said, people are crazy. I didn't know if somebody was going to show up there and start driving over people and start shooting. I was like, let me stay in the house. Plus, Joe wasn't going to be somebody I was going to parade in the street over. But, you know, when I saw the parades, I noticed initially, I saw a lot of white Americans just having a good time celebrating. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then I started thinking, like, but, you know, had the absentee votes not came in, you know, had the Black vote not been counted, he was going to still be in there. And there was 70+ million people who still voted for this fool. So I don't think we really need to be out here celebrating too much, because America clearly is still trash. Americans, at least 71 million, still decided that racism was fine. They still decided that disenfranchising groups of people based on their religion, how they look, where they're from, or what their sexuality is okay. You know, they decided that it's fine. Because again, people kept talking about, and speaking of Joe, I know people keep talking about this crime bill, so on and so forth. I think people need to also realize that had the current president been in power in '94, he would have supported that same bill. He would have definitely endorsed it just based on his actions in the past. Whether you talk Central Park 5, whether you talk about him not lending to Black tenants or anything like that, when you just talk about his verbiage, if you read his book, I didn't read it, but I watched somebody else read an excerpt from it, and he talks about what people need to do to criminals. He is 10 times worse than anything that would have been in that crime bill. He plays into that same role. But, you know, people were still fine with the same foolery that's happening. They're fine with it. And so I was like, why are y'all in the streets celebrating? I understand people are happy Trump is out, but for me, I'm like, son, ain't right in the water. This is disturbing as hell. Like, and the fact that so many people are mad that this man has lost and they're willing to take a bullet for this man. People are willing to commit crimes in the name of Trump. Who would not even bail them out if they got in trouble anyway? Foolery. I can't. All right, let me read some comments because I've been just rambling all night. Jeez Louise. Somebody said Irish were the indentured servants. And even with that, they volunteered to come over here. No disrespect to their plight, but they volunteered to come here. And then they were like, it was literally like a lease. So they weren't indentured servants for their entire experience, in comparison to if you want to talk about slavery, where you were born into it. Didn't matter what you did. You were born and you were going to be a slave just because of how you look. And even if you had your freedom, you could still get kidnapped because people didn't want to believe you. And even if you had your papers, they could rip those up too. Let's see. Yeah, Van Jones, I just don't rock with. I can't. I don't. I mean, congrats to him having his success, but he just comes off as weak to me. Like, at this point, Don Lemon has more backbone than Van Jones. And remember, Don Lemon used to be on some BS until about 2014, 2015. He used to get fried up on his channel too. Still don't trust him like that, but, you know, he's been giving them a little bit of smoke, so I've been letting him slide lately. Somebody, Brian John, said Democrats be racist too. Look, the whole system is racist. We know they're racist. It's no secret. That's why I keep saying none of these politicians, I don't trust any of them. But again, the difference, I think, and what you're seeing is one party, in my opinion, is just straight up a white nationalist party at this point. The other party, unfortunately, has the burden of having to take everybody else in. And they're trying to somehow appease everybody, but you got all these different groups represented. You got Black people, you have white people, you got Black, you know, the Latino community, the Asian community, the Native American community, the Middle Eastern community, all these different communities who all are fighting for something. And somehow this party has to somehow appease all of them at the same time. as opposed to the other side that's just like, we gonna vote no, 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 no on all of this. You can't have that. You can't have that. That's done. That's finished. It is what it is. And no abortions. God bless America. Oh, and let's go to war and blow up some more stuff. Though that's pretty much what the two parties are. Both parties are I don't see them as saviors to anything. And it goes back to when we've had these conversations about third party. Again, this is the time, like I've been saying for the last year or two, this is the time for those who really think you can really push a viable third party candidate. This is the time to build that coalition. And the only way a third party works, one, it's highly unlikely that a third party candidate is going to overtake one of the two parties. However, if you can create a coalition and a third party that is so grand where they have 20, 30, 40 million people represented, really the goal would be for that party to endorse either the Democrat or the Republican side. And literally that would be how that would work. You get them to, give you the tangibles that you're fighting for, and whoever decides, okay, we can give you this. Okay, well, if that's what y'all are saying, we're going to take our 40 million votes and support this candidate. That's the best way that a third party is going to work until money can come in to support the third party in the way that it does with Democrats and Republicans. Because this is a conversation of money. Until you take money out of politics, it's going to be the same foolery. Somebody said, don't forget to call out Eva. Yeah. Real quick. And then somebody said black and brown coalition. Let me start with Eva. Yeah, I'm gonna come back to that. So I did see the clip. Eva Longoria. It took me forever to figure out where she was from. I had to Google it. So she was on that show, Desperate Housewives. I don't know what else she's been doing since then, but she was on Joanne Reed, I think. She was on one of them shows, and they were talking about the election and everything. And they got on the subject of, who was the reason why Trump is no longer in office. And, so they briefly talk about, the black vote and specifically black women voting at a high percentage. And she said something along the lines of like, yeah, they really did great, or they really did show up and show out. But the real heroine in this election are the Latino women, because the Latino women, they went. And now while she's saying this, I'm over here just looking at the demographics of how people voted percentage wise. I said, Eva, I ain't trying to be rude, but if we want to talk numbers, it's still no disrespect to the Latino community, but like a full third of them still supported the foolery. And I think there's a deeper conversation in that, because again, like we've said before, the Latino community is not a monolith. Literally, or the Latino/Hispanic community, they're not a monolith. They don't vote the same way. They don't have the same ideals. Literally, the thing that they have in common for most of them is that they speak Spanish. But when it comes to ideals and viewpoints, they're in different planes and different boats. So again, like you have Cubans and Venezuelans who see things one way. You have Puerto Ricans, Mexicans who see things another way. You have people from El Salvador who see things another way. And so they all vote very differently, which is why it's interesting that they always try to put the Latino vote in one block. For black voters, there are black voters who tend to vote Republican, so on and so forth. But a lot of black voters recognize that they have to think of two things when they vote. One, how does it affect my experience as a black individual living in the United States? And how does that affect the overall well-being of the country? There's two things that black people have to consider. And because like I said, there are a lot of black people who are conservatives and honestly would vote Republican if the Republicans weren't so overtly racist and didn't have so many white nationalists and Klan members just running through the party, doing Lord knows what. There would be a lot who would actually shift over. In addition to the fact that if they didn't have so many punitive policies that are detrimental to the black collective, they could actually have some pull. What I find interesting, and I'm gonna get back to Eva, is in 2012 when Romney lost, the Republican Party said, we need to find a new strategy. We have to be more inclusive to all of the races. We need to be more inclusive to the black community, to the Latino community, so on and so forth. And then that went right out of the window as soon as 2015 hit and Donald Trump started to get his climb. And once they realized that whiteness could get through the door, all of that diversity crap went right out the window, and it went right back to, okay, let's really give it to them. And so interesting. But going back to Eva, I just think that's one of the flaws that exists when you try to build like a black and brown coalition, because what happens is, again, the Latino community and the black community are both living under a system that is oppressive, but they're in two different fights. And then God, peace and love to those that are black who identify as Latino, who, Afro-Latino. That's even a trickier concept. But they're in two different battles and two different fights. And so the sense of urgency is not as high in the Latino community as it would be for the black community, because no disrespect, those in the Latino community have places that they can go if stuff really hits the fan. Black America, people keep talking about the Exodus movement. We're going to go across the water, go back to the motherland and so on and so forth. It's not as utopian and as smooth as it appears to be, because again, do I want to have this conversation tonight? I'll lightly skim over. But again, for a lot of black people, this is home. We done built this mess. You know what I mean? The wealth that we're seeing all around us, our ancestors built this crap. And so a lot of us are like, no, we ain't going nowhere. We gonna fight for what's ours. You know what I mean? And to those who do want to go back across the water, you know, good luck to you. I support you. Do your thing. You know, it'd be great to get some transcontinental businesses and stuff going. I support you. But again, for me as a Black individual, my ancestors built all this stuff for you. I ain't going nowhere. If I leave, I'm taking something with me. I'm gonna take one of them pillars off the White House or something. It's going with me. I don't know how it's gonna fit on the plane, but look, something's going with me. There's no way my ancestors gonna sit here and build the whole country and then all of us leave and then everybody else gets to benefit from our hard work. No, F that. Because really what would happen, all of us could go over to the motherland and so on and so forth. And by the time the U.S. does its U.S. thing, you're still gonna be oppressed and over on the continent as well, because all of the policy that's happening over there is so influenced by Europe and the United States. So what's the point? But no, Eva, again, I mean, she apologized and gave a very thorough apology and was talking about, you know, how she recognizes how she messed up. And then she gave kudos to the Black community and Black women and how they've been a backbone for years and decades and so on and so forth. I just think, again, a lot of times people just get to talking and stuff slips out, stuff slips up. It could have been an honest mistake. I'm not pressed about it because I wasn't even really following her like that to begin with. But, you know, just let that be a lesson learned. You know, it's what happens when you have a lot of these celebrities speaking. Now, from what I understand, she does a lot more community activism. But, you know, I guess, you know, it's hard for me to buy 100% into the whole we're all Black and brown together coalition. There are some people who are down, but there's anti-Blackness still even exists in that realm. Like, I don't think people understand how strong anti-Blackness is, because even in the Black community, anti-Blackness exists. All right. There are certain organizations that there's exuded. I'm not going to call this organization out, but I remember they had a huge donation to my center. And by the time I was finished at their little banquet event, I wanted to cuss everybody up in the room. I wanted to cuss every person out because I was like, you bougie, uppity. I had so much I wanted to say, but I couldn't. I was like, you know what, F it, because it was a bad day. Prince had just died. I was going through some stuff. I was like, F it. Let me just get these little paper and pencils for these kids. But I wanted to fry that group up. Now, mind you, this was not a Greek organization. So I know y'all talking about paper bag tests and thinking I'm talking about the AKAs or something. No, it had nothing to do with that. It was just a group. I ain't saying no more. I ain't saying no less. But for me, there was an energy that I didn't vibe with. And I was like, something ain't right with this group at all. I understand that they're trying to do good, but, you know, there's too many that give the energy that because I'm successful, I know everything, and the rest of you are in your predicament because you choose to be. Like, I can't stand it. Anyway, let's see where we're at. Boom, boom, boom. Somebody said they need to get off our backs and do things for themselves. Oh, y'all shaking the table now. I definitely want to travel to the continent. I still would love to go to the continent. Like I told you, my goddaughter is half Liberian. The mom is from Liberia. And the mom was like one of my best friends. And then, you know, like I would love to go to the continent. I would like to go visit all 5 regions. Like the countries I have written down that I would like to see. I've always wanted to see Ghana, but now that my goddaughter and everything is, you know, from Liberia and my best friend started a nonprofit there, I actually would like to visit Liberia. I mean, if I could do both in the same trip, that would be cool. I would really like to see Tanzania for some reason. It just keeps popping out to me. Of course, South Africa. I know that sounds cliche, but I would like to see South Africa. I'd like to see Cameroon, and I would like to see Malawi. Those are the ones that stick out to me. That I would love to visit. But anyway, and yeah, there's some really cool places there. So this is not to try to tear anybody down, but it's just like, you know what? Somebody said, goddaughter, you look like you're in your teens. I'm far from them teens. I wish. Dang, like time be flying. Like I swear I was like 15, like 2 days ago. And I'm like, what happened? I be looking like I got another birthday coming. Jeez. Oh, Australia. I've been meaning. I think Australia is a really cool place to visit. I got some beefs with how they do stuff over there, but it seems like a beautiful place. I'm kind of scared of the wildlife over there because y'all got some wild, every weird animal y'all got over there. Even the kangaroos be popping up. Like I used to think kangaroos were nice. I keep seeing clips of kangaroos ready to fight folks and stuff. Like Lord. Okay. One thing I did want to say as well when we talk about anti-Blackness, I think a really cool clip that you guys should go see is there's a movie called The Lunch Date. I'm going to explain it really, really quick. And it's a black and white film, but I think it's a perfect example of just how race has been portrayed in the United States and how people see things. And so in this movie, there's a white woman, right? And she's at I think she's at a train station or a subway or something. And so she stops to go get some food while she waits for the train. Right. So she sits, she gets the food that's ordered. She's sitting there eating the food. I think she gets up to go and check the times for her train or catch up, something. I can't remember. I saw this video like 10 years ago. And so she gets to her, after she finished looking, she goes to what she believes is her seat. And there's this black guy to sit there. And she's looking and she feels like the black guy's eating her food because he's at the table just, and so she's like, hey, hey. And so she's kind of arguing with this guy like, this is my seat. This is my food and everything. And so he keeps eating the food, looking at her like, okay. Okay. And so she gets pissed off. And so eventually they sit and eat the meal together. He was cool about it. He let her eat off of his plate or eat off the plate and everything because she felt that this was the seat that was hers. Turns out she went to the wrong seat. Her seat was in the booth, next to her. But the way, like, depending on how you see the world and depending on how you view race, many people would have assumed that the black man stole her seat and was eating her food and he was some random homeless person that was violent, so on and so forth. And then it turned out that she actually was in the wrong and she just went to the wrong seat. And it's kind of reflective of what you see all the time with just people, dealing with a bunch of different things when it comes to race. So that was very interesting. Let's see, what else did I write here? Boom, boom, boom. There's so much, man. I'm tired. All right, last page. And then we can have some little fun discussions for the rest because we didn't talk some heavy stuff tonight. The last thing I did want to talk about is if you saw this happened a few months back, but there was a story about, we've seen what's been happening in regards to immigration and people being detained and so on and so forth. But you saw the stories of a lot of women being sterilized in the state of Georgia, right? There were women who were literally sterilized. Doctors operated on them. They couldn't have kids. And so I saw the story where now the women who launched the initial complaint are now, they're trying to deport them. And what I would like to say is it's interesting because it ties back to a pattern that you've seen in the United States before. So I want to read something really quick here. Let me see here. Where's it at? It says, selective sterilization also protects children, for no child should be born to subnormal parents, denied a fair, healthy start in life, or doomed from birth to mental institutions. And so that statement comes from, this is the 1930s, where there was a time period where sterilizations were popular in the United States. So from 1929 to 1974, a lot of Americans, literally 7,000 Black Americans were sterilized, Black men and women. And really, like, what happened was that, you have, sometimes it was a teenage mother or a young mother who got pregnant, and so after they gave birth, in addition to giving birth, a hysterectomy was done, and everything was taken out. And so you saw this happen in North Carolina, and literally, like, the people and the victims of that are just now, getting payments from the state. But you've seen that happen before where, hold on, I'm trying to see what. Okay, make sure I didn't skip nothing. But you've seen that happen before in North Carolina. And it didn't just happen with Black people. They also did that to the Native Americans as well. And so literally, you've seen it happen to so many groups. And the narrative was, well, okay, people, these people, and it ties back to that conversation of eugenics. And even with that, if you watch my video I did on why I don't support standardized testing, it ties back to that. It goes back to the idea of eugenics and Darwinism and the idea that some groups of people were just 100% inferior at everything, physically, intellectually, and so on and so forth. And so it was literally legal for people to be sterilized because society felt if you can breed them out, we won't have to deal with them anymore. And so that's literally what happened in North Carolina. But now you're seeing it even happen to these people who were detained in some of these cages. Again, I don't care where you stand on immigration. At the end of the day, there's a conversation about integrity. And had the United States not corrupted so many countries, so many nations that, literally are just pretty much in a state of chaos, so many people wouldn't be fleeing to come here. So it's kind of like a boomerang effect where our policies, where we've gone and killed leaders and corrupted governments and done all these different things and created policies that made it harder for people where these countries really suffered. And now that the people are living in environments where things don't align and they're coming here, now you're sterilizing them. You're putting their kids in cages and separating them. Again, I don't care where you stand on immigration. People have many claims that they can make on immigration and how it affects different communities. I understand that. But again, when it comes to integrity and humanity, there are just certain things that there's no excuse for. There's no excuse to sterilize anybody, and there's no excuse to separate a mother from their child permanently and not even pay, like stuff like that. You can't justify. It's foolery. And what's crazy is you've seen so many Americans who are fine with it. It ain't even a big deal to them. It is what it is. They should have came over here. Should have stayed where they were at. I mean, what are you going to do? You come and do it the right way. You do the paperwork. You keep your kid. you know, and it's the same energy as he should have complied. You know, yeah, we know this police shot him in the eye, but he should have complied. You know, why didn't he? You know, same energy. So there's that. The last, dang, I got two more heavy things, and then I'm gonna wrap up and we'll go to the lighter stuff. Louisville. I don't know if you've seen this, but there was a report coming out of Louisville where, let me just read it because I ain't even trying to mess up this story. Because I said, excuse me, what did they just say? Let me just read the article for y'all. I'm gonna just read a piece of it because there's a whole lot in here. Did I write it? Where's it at? All right. Louisville Metro Police concealed at least 738,000 records. Mind you, this is the same Louisville, Breonna Taylor, Louisville, same energy. At least 738,000 records documenting the sexual abuse of Explorer Scouts by 2 officers, then lied to keep the files from the public. The Courier-Journal last year requested all records regarding sexual abuse of minors by 2 officers in the Explorer Scout program for youth interested in law enforcement careers. Police officials in the Jefferson County Attorney's Office said they couldn't comply, insisting that all records had been turned over to the FBI for its investigation. But that wasn't true. According to records, the Courier-Journal recently obtained an appeal of its open records case. In fact, the department still has at least 738,000 records, which the city allowed to be deleted. The records could shed light on when department and city officials first learned of allegations of sexual abuse by youth in the police officers program and what the officials did, failed to do, or didn't do in relation to that specific issue. You see what I'm talking about when you say like the entire policing system it just needs to be gutted and flushed out? This is the example of what we're talking about, where again, it's a system where people get coddled and protected and you get to do whatever you want. And especially now with the current administration, who's pretty much allowed the police to just say it's open season on everybody. Now, mind you, this predates Donald Trump, so he can't even get all the smoke on this one, but you're seeing the same cycle. And it's not just Louisville. How many times do you keep seeing situations where women come and say, I've been sexually assaulted by this police officer when I got pulled over, so on and so forth? Nothing happens. There are tons and tons of cases of sexual assault within these police departments, and nothing happens. And now you're literally looking at it happen to children who were Explorer Scouts. I've never heard of that. I don't know if that's an extension of Boy Scouts or Cub Scouts or Eagle Scouts, whatever. I don't know if that's the same energy, but these are kids who have an interest in wanting to be police and still dealing with the same foolishness where, you know, they're victims of sexual assault. Nothing happened. It's almost like the Catholic Church all over again, how they knew what was happening with all those kids and they kept it quiet for years and years and years and years and years. You know, foolery. And so again, when you hear all of these people talking about what's wrong with the policing, this is what people are talking about. But again, folks like to be naive and say, oh, it's just because bad guys want to just be able to do whatever they want and not follow the law. And without the police, we wouldn't be able to survive. That's not the conversation. The conversation is the system that's in place has to go. You can create a new policing system that is fair and just, but it can't have the remnants of what's already existed in the past, or that same pattern will return. It's kind of like cancer. You know, if somebody unfortunately has cancer and they do the radiation and everything and they get it all, but there's one little spot that they didn't get, what happens? It spreads and it goes. And if you haven't been paying attention, it goes to stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. And in worst case scenario, you don't really make it out. That's exactly what happens with policing. And so the policing system in this country is so complicated and complex when it comes to the levels of corruption that exist. Because, okay, I know people are going to say there's good cops. We know there are people who go into it with good intentions. But a system, you know, a system cannot be taken down by good intentions. It can't be taken down by well-intentioned people unless those people are in power and have the power to gut that system. If you're under that system and working under that system, yes, there are people who want to go and police their neighborhood and make sure the community is great. Cool, I'm cool with it, but again, the system is screwed. And again, if they decide they want to flip the switch and start turning into some foolish kind of police, do whatever they want to do, they're protected. Nothing happens. I think there was a video I made maybe in 2012 or 2013. I think this was after Jordan Davis, and we talked about the state of Florida and how there were, I believe at the time, this is like 2012, there were like 600 different instances of unarmed people being shot and killed by police. And only 2 of those instances, you know, it went to trial in regards to the police being charged. So this is a system that is just, it's a lot. You know what I mean? And so that's the example of what people are talking about, in addition to the police brutality, the unjust killings, the money laundering, the fraud. Because, you know, a lot of times when they be finding these drug busted and all that money, folks be getting rich, okay? The same thing you be seeing on the movies when, you know, or like All About the Benjamins, when at the end he still had a diamond or 2. They be doing the same thing, you know what I mean? Last thing I want to shift on, and then I'm gonna come to the comments, and then we can finally just talk some whatever we want to talk about till I go to sleep. There was an article that came out about Black home ownership in the United States. And again, this goes back to what we were talking about when you're talking about a structural system that oppresses people, and when you talk about the wealth gap and the effects of something like Black people being left out of FHA loans and the New Deal and the GI Bill and the ordinances that existed where people couldn't live anywhere and everything else like that. And then when you just talk about inflation and the wealth gap and how it affects people. So it says, number one, the current 30 percentage point gap between Black and white homeownership is larger than it was in 1968, when housing discrimination was actually legal. With the passage of the 1968 Fair Housing Act, the federal government prohibited housing discrimination on the basis of race. But today, the Black-white homeownership gap is actually larger, 30.1%, all right, as of 2017. The second piece I wanted to add, too, if the Black home ownership rate were the same as it was in the year 2000, America would have 770,000 additional Black homeowners. Black homeowners have been the slowest to recover from the Great Recession, and their home ownership rate has decreased to below pre-crisis levels. Troy research demonstrates that there will be 770,000 more homeowners if home ownership rate recovered to its pre-crisis level in 2000. For both Black and Hispanic households, there was an increase in home ownership between 89 and 2005. And then we saw a shift where it took a downward spiral. 3, home ownership is lower for, get this part. Home ownership is lower for Black college graduates, than it is for white high school dropouts. Y'all see my apartment, right? African Americans with 4-year college degrees have a lower home ownership rate than white Americans without a high school diploma, said Choi, citing data from a 2017 American Community Survey. Although homeownership rates increase as educational attainment increases for both Black and white Americans, white high school dropouts have a home ownership rate of 60.5% compared with the 56.4% for Black college graduates. Again, that's a conversation of generational wealth. And again, even when you're talking loans and student loans, that plays a role into people qualifying for housing. And even if you want to, again, have the conversation with HBCUs, you're seeing the discrepancies when it comes to the loans that are given out, and when you're talking interest rates, so on and so forth. But going back to the generational wealth, when you have a community that hasn't been allowed to even live in certain neighborhoods or build wealth sometimes, literally, they're not in the same predicament where you see a lot of other people whose parents are able to help put a down payment down on their house, so on and so forth. It's not everybody, but it's an experience that you see with a lot of white Americans who their parents have it because the grandparents had it, because the great-grandparents had it. There's something to pass down. A lot of Black families, this is the first generation where there's something to pass down. Mom and dad are the first ones to own something, or maybe grandma. Or grandma had the house, but we had to sell grandma's house because the neighborhood got gentrified. We couldn't afford to pay the taxes on it. We had to get out. Or a developer came in and bought up the whole area, and we lost in the court battle, and we lost our house, and so on and so forth. Or there was a new law that came in. They decided that they wanted to widen the street on, whatever side of town. And so everything that was along that street had to be condemned. And, the city gave them $50,000, $40,000 and, so on and so forth. So that's the experience for a lot of people. That's why when we keep having these conversations about institutional, systemic racism, this is the stuff that I'm talking about. It's not just about feelings and I don't like you because you're Black. Who cares? Who cares if somebody don't like you because of your race? And I don't give a, see me on the street. Let me see. Number 4, Black borrowers are less likely to meet the traditional credit standards necessary to qualify for a mortgage. Again, compared with white Americans, Black Americans typically have a lower FICO score and higher percentage of missing FICO scores, according to Jay Aday, a senior economist in the single-family affordable lending and access to credit division at Freddie Mac. According to research there presented, the white-Black gap in transition from rental to homeownership is 7.5% as of 2018. She explained credit factors which capture the FICO scores, missing FICO indicators, clean thin file indicators, and various measures of debt as far as debt to income ratio contribute substantially to the white minority gap. All right. And some of that ties into even something like life insurance, where, there was a time period where we weren't even eligible for those policies. And so you've seen communities have a whole head start where great-great-grandpa, great-grandpa, grandpa all had life insurance policies for their families. And so when they died, the family might have got 20,000, 10,000. Some people had big money, 100,000, and some people didn't spend the money. They let it sit, they let it grow. Inflation comes in, and now they're sitting on just wads of wealth and everything, so on and so forth. You keep passing it down. Now there's a family pool of money. Yeah, we can help our daughter put some money down on a down payment on a house, and we can help the son, so on and so forth. Again, that's not every white American. We know it's not, because there's a lot of white Americans in this country who are struggling. However, it goes back to the fact that The system benefited that collective. However, Black Americans did not get that. Really, Generation X, you know, those born after the baby boomers, a lot of them are that first generation to even possibly get any kind of benefits from life insurance policies. And so those are the conversations that we're having again when we talk about race from a structural standpoint. Being left out of access to the resources has played a role 40, 15, 60 years later, even to people who are doing everything to build themselves up. Like, another fact that we need to pay attention to is that only 13% of people who are born into poverty are able to climb out of poverty. And again, it's not because people want to be poor. It's not because people are lazy. It's because, again, when you're up against so much and you're working to fight against so much, in addition to still just trying to live and take care of yourself, it's harder to climb out. Like, I don't think people understand that sometimes. Sometimes people are so judgmental, and it's, you need to pull yourself up by the bootstrap. You're not working hard enough, so on and so forth. And like, even with the conversation around college, the cost of education has gotten so high in comparison to 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. You have people putting themselves in 6 figures of debt, you know, to go and do social work, which is a field that doesn't even pay well. But, you know, they have the integrity and the heart and know how to want to do well for people and help other folks. And unfortunately, the payout is not there. Same thing with education. The payout in education really doesn't kick in until you've been in that field for a very long time. And it also depends on how much education you have. Like, so if you're a teacher first starting, you know, you got your bachelor's, you know, you'll get a cute little salary, but, you know, you're not going to be getting what the person who's been there for 15 years is getting, especially if they have a master's. You know what I mean? And so there's conversations where in this country, money creates money. But if you never had any to start with, you know, you're really running behind the race. Was there one more piece on that? Yes. And then number 5, 17% of the Black-white home ownership gap can't be explained by identifiable factors. Even when accounting for individual factors such as marital status, income distribution, FICO scores, age, median household income, and city segregation, Choi found that approximately 17% of Black-white home ownership gap remains unexplained. They said that although lower and decreasing permanent incomes contribute to the gap, there was an increase in the unexplained portion over time. This suggests the need for more research into the specific barriers to home ownership for African Americans. And so, again, you literally just, when I say Black folks got to deal with so much, and we carry it so well, like for as crappy of a deck that so many people have gotten. I feel like I've been pretty blessed where I haven't had to struggle as much, but I still struggle. I ain't rich over here. You know what I mean? I've been blessed in my experience, but it comes at the expense of other things. You know what I mean? It comes at the expense of, okay, well, I have a parent that's no longer living, and other things. And so, again, I just think we deal with so much, and then we're expected to always have poise. Like I said on the last live, Black people are overburdened with the expectation of poise in every situation, whether it's police brutality, whether it's racism, whether it's job discrimination, housing. It doesn't matter what it is. The burden of poise always sits on us. We have to have poise in everything we do. We don't get the luck. We can't go to no federal building with AR-15s and protest. Or somebody like Ronald Reagan will change that law in California, Black Panthers. You saw how that shifted. You know, we don't get to do that. You know, we don't get to go to the polls early in North Carolina and sing and march because, no, we're going to get pepper sprayed. Because we're not, you know, we don't get to protest in Florida because if you just walk past whatever store, they think you're trying to loot it, they're going to shoot and kill you. And we're expected to have poise every single time. And every single time you shake the table and challenge the status quo, the first thing folks want to do is bring up Martin Luther King, who was killed while having poise, killed in a suit, killed wearing a suit, out there literally fighting for sanitation workers, something that most people don't fight for the sanitation workers in this country, fighting for that, and you still get killed. And when he died, he had an approval rating of 38%. People didn't even like him when he was alive. And then as he dies, okay, let's make him a martyr and paint him out to be this wonderful hero. And we'll use him as kryptonite and as a weapon every time we want Black people to shut up about race in this country. And then, you know, if we don't use Martin Luther King, we will latch onto the exceptions that are able to slip through the cracks. We'll latch onto a Beyonce. We'll latch onto a LeBron James or Barack Obama or Oprah, you know, Serena Williams. Why can't you be like them? They did it. Why can't you do it? Great. So now the burden on me is I have to be one of the best basketball players in the world in order to be successful. I have to be one of the best tennis players in the world in order to be successful. I have to have a 30-year music career where I dominate and just kill the scene for like 20, when did she come out? 97, 98, 20 plus years in order to be considered, you know, where I need to be. I need to become the president. I need to be editor of the Harvard Law Review. I need to go to Columbia. I need to have a TV network and a TV show. Otherwise, you know, I'm making excuses. Those are the standards that people measure us to. You know what I mean? Because those are the only people in the Black collective that get exposure. You know, ask a random, no disrespect, white folks, but ask a random white person to name a doctor other than Ben Carson. We'll be here all day. You know what I mean? Ask them to name an engineer. Ask them to name anything other than entertainment and sports. It gets real silent. You know what I mean? But again, the burden on Black folks, poise, 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 poise. And so it's like, we don't want you to go, you know, we don't want to stump you out too loud. So you need to be quiet about it. And so, and the reason they do that is because they know if too many people start talking, then too many people start getting enlightened. Too many people start getting ideas. Too many people start going against the status quo, and it starts a movement. That's why you had something like COINTELPRO take place, where literally the federal government says we need to keep an eye on every single Black movement that's aimed at progression. And we need to pretty much do anything we can to tear it down. And so we'll infiltrate these movements. We'll throw drugs into the movements. We'll throw drugs into the neighborhood. We'll also throw weapons into the neighborhood, because I don't know where you think your cousin Darnell was able to get an AR-15 from, but we'll throw some weapons into the neighborhood and everything like that. And so, you know, we'll do all of that just to corrupt it like that. That's the experience that you see. And that's what's happening even with this election. The Black vote is literally under attack at the moment, where they're trying to say it's not legit. And the funniest thing with recounts, they did a recount in 2016 with Michigan. And when they did a recount, because this was funded by Jill Stein, you know, she was a Green Party candidate, there was only a difference of less than 200 votes when it was all said and done. So you honestly think a state like Michigan, where the current president lost by 145,000 votes, you think all those votes are going to disappear? You think the 50 or 60,000 he's losing by in Pennsylvania is going to disappear? You honestly think the 13,000 in Georgia is going to disappear? I mean, if they disappear, it's because somebody did some shady stuff in the background. But literally, it's foolery. Anyway, let's do some comments, and then we're going to get to some nicer things. We've been frying people up all day. Thanks to everybody who donated. I haven't had a chance to really look at the screen as while I was over here ranting and on my soapbox. Calvin, please talk about Dave Chappelle's monologue on SNL. I didn't see the whole thing. The piece I saw I thought was kind of funny. I can't remember what he was talking about though. But I didn't see. Oh, thank you. I forgot all about Jeffrey Toobin. Now that's some foolery in itself. I think I even put him in the title and still didn't even talk about him. So Jeffrey Toobin is the guy, I believe he was at CNN, who was on the Zoom and for some reason was pleasuring himself and was exposed and got out there. And so they recently just fired him. Here's the thing. I know a lot of people have been in the stay-at-home orders and so on and so forth, but you have to be in a position where you have self-control. Your hormones can't be that on fire. Secondly, you're at work. You know, like, no disrespect, when I'm on the board meetings, you know, I'm usually the youngest one there, and all of the board members are like in their 60s and 70s. That's not the environment where I'm going to be aroused to want to pleasure myself looking at, you know, literally the Golden Girls and the people from Lamb Chops Play Along. No disrespect. Like, no, you know what I mean? Like, I can't. So I don't, you know, that's an embarrassing way to go out. And then you have to explain that every time somebody asks what happened to you. Well, I got fired because, you know, like who does that? And I don't think he did it on purpose. I don't think he knew he was on camera or so on and so forth, but that's embarrassing. You know what I mean? Like, that's one thing I'm like paranoid about. Like, even when I finish these lives, the first thing I do when I close this off, I unhook that camera so quick because it's a separate camera. Like, my laptop is over here, my camera's right here. Like, I unhook that camera, put that camera away. I keep a little piece of tape on my laptop webcam because I be swearing these people be hacking stuff and they can be looking at you. I don't need nobody looking at me because as soon as I finish this, I go right over there and lay down and watch my shows and stuff. And I'm always paranoid, making sure that the thing is still not looking at me. So how do you get comfortable enough to do that at work? That's embarrassing. There was another clip I saw before when everybody first started the stay-at-home order, and there was a guy who thought he logged off. Like, they were having some kind of staff meeting. He thought he logged off. He goes in the back. He goes and gets, you know, whatever he's going to use to do his thing, sits right in front. He already had his website on deck. Like, he had the website ready. I don't know what he's looking at. I don't know, you know, big body Black women. I don't know what he's looking at, but and everything. And he just gets to going, and the people are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's so embarrassing. Jeez, Lord. All right. Okay. So yeah, it sucks for him. That's a career ender. And I think he has kids and stuff too. Like, that's anyway. I never turn that music off in the background. Hopefully the microphone doesn't pick it up. He really forgot he was working. Like, how do you be? By the time I finish work, I'm so annoyed and ready to fight and cuss people out. Ain't nobody thinking about nothing sexual. Like, hell, F this person. Most likely, I'm probably getting on the phone to call somebody to rant to. You know how everybody has that one friend that you just let loose on. Even, and I'm trying to be better at like making sure I'm there for them the same way that they're there for me. Like I think everybody has that one friend that you can just go and call and just let it all out on. Like, man, let me tell you what's on step. I'm about to quit tomorrow, and then you're still there 10 years later. Anyway, moving on. Let's see what we got going on. I don't even know why I got to this conversation because Lord. Tana May talking trash. I tried to do good, Tana May. I asked you how you was doing on the phone today earlier. See how friends be doing? Friends be fake. Let me quit. She says she don't get a word in. Let me go ahead and block her. No, we quit. Holiday plans. I don't have any. One of my good friends is coming in, I think, for Thanksgiving. We're unsure because with the COVID numbers acting wild. I'm like, but I believe they're coming in. But that's all I'm doing, just having my one friend come. I'm taking this pandemic thing seriously. I know a lot of people are like, it's a hoax and blah, 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 blah. I ain't playing into that. Sorry. Can't do it. Like I've seen too many people die at this point. And seeing too many people just suffer. And it's just, I just think it would be irresponsible to just live life like nothing's wrong. And again, I work with kids and stuff, so I can't be spreading stuff or they can't be spreading stuff to me either. So there's that. What else we got? Oh, let me tell y'all something. You guys remember, I did that Shaka Khan video. Like, remember Shaka Khan did the national anthem? And then, people fried it up because they hated it. And then I made a video and I made like my own parody. Well, not even a parody. I just put some music behind it because I said all Shaka Khan needed was a funk band and she was going to be all right. You know what I mean? And so I posted that like in February or January or something. So randomly somebody reposted it on Instagram and Shaka Khan commented on it. So I just want y'all to know. I'm moving on up. I would be petty and go get. Remember that one time when I was on Netflix and I went and got the scarf and the shades? I'd go do that, but I don't feel like getting up. But yeah, that's funny. And then again, congrats, Whitney Houston, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm usually not pressed about those institutions because they get on my nerves anyway. They seem to have a problem every time black folk, especially black women, get in there if they're not heavily rock and roll. Because they was pissed off when Janet got in there, and they were pissed off when Whitney got in too. But anyway, for those who are asking for the Shaka Khan video, it's one of my videos. Just scroll on. But no, congrats to her. Somebody was asking me about what I think about The Weeknd doing the halftime at the Super Bowl. I mean, I guess I've never seen him as like a Super Bowl stadium kind of person. His music to me is kind of a mood kind of thing. You kind of vibe and chill out there stuff. But it is, good luck to him. I'm probably not watching anyway, because again, me and the NFL ain't getting along right now. I'll look at it on YouTube some weeks later or something, but that's it. Again, yeah, exactly. There's certain accolades I don't need. MTF gang, you're absolutely right. Calvin, have you seen the Songbird trailer? I don't even know what that is. I haven't seen that. Let's see. I love Shaka Khan's rendition. I mean, it wasn't that bad. She kept switching keys and doing her Shaka Khan thing, but it wasn't terrible. Again, the smoke I had was when Cheetah Girls did that national anthem. That thing was painful to sit through. Okay, like that was something you can laugh at and get pissed off about. Let's see. To be fair, there's not many big stadium larger than life artists anymore. That's absolutely true. Like, there's not really a whole lot of people left. I mean, if I'm looking at the list of who's left, unfortunately, Britney Spears ain't in her right mind. She got a lot going on. Plus, she already did halftime, but I really think 15 years ago, they should have given her that stage. That would have probably been decent. Usher, I don't think has done halftime. Has Pink done it? I don't think Pink has done it. Other than that, who's left? As far as people that are really big, stadium performers. Somebody said, what are my thoughts on the growing Black conservative movement? I don't really have thoughts on it. I think what happens is there's like two pockets of that. You have people who have always been Black conservatives to begin with, but then you have people who have kind of latched on to the Candace Owens Diamond and Silk bubble, which is just foolery, where literally in order to make their points, it always has to be rooted in anti-Black talking points and then disguised as conservatism, and it aligns with white conservatism. Because again, Black and white conservatism are two different things. So yeah, but I don't have a whole lot to say on it. It ain't my lane, so it is what it is. I'll always be going hoarse by the time we finish these. And you know what? I wonder what kind of career some of these folks are going to have once Trump is out of there. Because that's the other thing. A lot of these people, dang, right when I start talking about them, see my voice go out? A lot of these people, they built their brand in allegiance to Trump, not in allegiance to conservatism or an allegiance to Republican policy, specifically to Trump. And so now that Trump is kind of out the door, I question, like, where does that leave a lot of them? Because what you're going to see, a lot of the networks tried this crap once Trump got in there. You notice that once he got in, all the networks decided, okay, we need to start putting more right-wing conservative people on the panels because we need to do the both sides energy and give, energy to whatever. And they just put anybody out there. Rick frickin' Santorum, he gets to be on the show, as cuckoo as he is. I'm like, if you're going to get a Republican or a conservative, get somebody that has a little bit of common sense. They always go get the most extreme cuckoo, everything they say is full of BS kind of person, and then they represent that movement. And then people wonder why conservatives catch so much smoke. But no, like literally you saw all these networks go and try to bring in all these different people. Even MSNBC, when they try to give, what's her name, a show, I can't think of her name, but it's the white lady from Fox News, not Megyn Kelly, who is another loony person, but it's the other woman. They try to give her a show. It didn't really work out, and it was axed. But you saw this movement of where they started trying to give more energy to those voices. And now that Trump's out, I'm wondering how that's going to shift. You know what I mean? Because again, a lot of these networks, they really just play into what's going to bring ratings and what brings in money. Laura Ingraham, that's her name. Thank you, Summer. Somebody said, what do I think about the Britney situation? She lost her case. From what I read, the case, it's, I can't think of the term, but the term, it just means that they're going to come back to it. She lost it temporarily. Like, like Britney's suing her father to pretty much get out of her conservatorship. Like, she's pretty much been under the guidance of the father and some other people since, 2007 or something. And, so she's not allowed to, she can't manage her money. She can't, literally, she just can't do anything. I know people are like, who cares about Britney Spears? But, I think, again, this is somebody who at one point was a huge entertainer that had this massive career. And then you literally watch the downfall, but literally she's pretty much controlled, and if you've ever seen her interviews, something is weird. Her speaking voice, I don't know what happened, but she doesn't even sound right. She's somebody I'm like, I hope she doesn't go off the cliff. Like, I really hope she has good people around her, but she's an example of somebody who I think people have just taken advantage of. And they do that with a lot of really huge celebrities. So it's sad. Do you think there should be a new Black Panther movement? Maybe not specifically that movement, because there already is that movement. If you remember, like I did the video about the Fred Hampton movie, and so they had Fred Hampton Jr. on the Zoom call when I was on the meeting with the Warner Brothers people about it, and he's a part of the new Black Panther Party, I believe. And so they have that. I think what happens is you have to create parties that align with whatever's happening in the now. I believe the Black Panther Party was very necessary in its time, but as time has shifted and things have evolved, you wouldn't be able to go into 2020 with exactly the same, the exact same ideas as the Black Panther Party did back then, because some things have shifted. You would have to evolve the narrative. I think a party like that is needed, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a recreation of the Black Panther Party. What they did was great for their era. And so it's like, okay, they paved the lane, and so you drive in a lane, and now what can you build and pave the lane for what's next? You know what I mean? But there's a bunch of different groups that are out that are all fighting for a bunch of different things, and they've all been making their noise in social media and everything like that. And there's a bunch of leadership positions that have been created where some people are doing grassroots things. You're seeing the job spread, where like even like Stacey Abrams and how she was able to really get the voter registration just energized in the state of Georgia. Like, that was amazing. She could have just lost that governorship that they stole from her and said, it is what it is, I quit. But she didn't. And she said, okay, she partnered with so many grassroots organizations that were already doing the groundwork in Georgia. And look what happened. You know what I mean? And so the work is being spread. I think, and my friend Janae said it's really good one time, where it's like, sometimes you can't try to be the person to try to do everything. You gotta, I don't know how she said it. Put what you said down in the quote today, because I know you're still here. You have to kind of spread what it is that you can do. Like for me, my lane, I think where I shine is I can relay information and get people energized. And then somebody else is the person that should be the one that organizes, because I ain't the most organized person. That ain't my lane. But I can break down history and put things in a layman's term and make people understand things that may sound complicated. I think that's my lane. But my lane is not really, you're not going to see me leading the charge to anything. I just know where my lane is. Let's see. We can do, here we go. She said, if everyone does their thing, no one has to do it at all. Thank you. Boom. What are your thoughts on Waiting to Excel being turned into a TV series? It is? Okay. I mean, I didn't even know about that, but okay. I guess. Cool. Go for it. Let's see. What do you think about Mariah Carey's memoir? So I did finish the Mariah Carey book. I liked it. The only thing, it just felt like it stopped after like '07. Like it seemed like it just abruptly stopped. I thought she was going to talk about, because she said that, or they announced that she suffers from bipolar disorder. I thought she was going to talk about that a little bit and explain, the experience of being, one of the biggest stars in the world and still battling mental illness, and how, I'm sure that's something that she wanted to protect, because that could be something that's weaponized against her in this industry. And so, I thought she'd talk about that, but it's interesting. She does really go into detail about the experience of being biracial, and even her father, because her father, interestingly enough, has that experience where, again, this is a black man in the South, where he was accused of raping a white woman. The whole family literally had to like uproot and move, I believe. And so it was an interesting book. I thought she was going to go a little bit further in detail, but everything leading up to 2008 was okay. She did a really good explanation of the whole mental breakdown piece. She talked about, the experience, again, being a biracial child, and then her older two siblings, of course, were darker hues, and how there was discrepancies with how everybody was treated. There's a lot in that book. There was a lot. Like, I ain't trying to spoil it, but like one of the sisters was literally trying to sell her off to, into prostitution. Like, there was a lot going on in that book. Let's see. Judas and the Black Messiah. Any thoughts on the upcoming Fred Hampton film? So I did do a video on it. I would like to see it. From what I understand, it was supposed to come out in November, but I think with a lot of these movies, they're really trying to ride out this pandemic, because they would rather have these films screened in the theaters as opposed to video on demand. I don't think that's going to happen, anytime soon. I just think there's been a shift in a lot of things. I don't think the movie industry is ever going to go back to what we know it as. It's just, there's so much that's shifted. You know what I mean? And so there's that. Can we play trivia? Let's do it on the next live. Like I said, I'm going to do 2 lives in December. So we'll do trivia. I have nothing for y'all tonight. Plus, I'm losing my voice. But I do have a fun little idea for the next trivia lesson. So for those of you who are music heads, it should be a lot of fun. We'll do another live. The next live will be a fun live, and then I'll close the year out with a heavier live. So, and again, like I said, the Zoom meetups are coming as well. There should be one in December. So I'll get those dates out, and those who are interested, just, shoot me an email once we lock it in. Okay, 5 top NBA players of all time. Oh, Lord. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jordan. God, what is his name? It's the guy who's won like 13 titles. God, why don't I know his name right now? Somebody put it in the comments. You know who I'm talking about. 13 titles. Who's that guy? God, what is his name? Let me Google it. I'll throw LeBron in there. Is it Bill Russell? Bill Russell. Somebody said Robert Horry. I like Robert Horry too. Now, my favorite player was Sean Kemp growing up. Sean Kemp was my absolute favorite growing up. Like, I'm a Sonics fan. I think, is my Sonics hat on my couch? Yeah, right there in that back corner. That's my Sonics hat. I'm still holding on to hope that one day Seattle can have a team again. Bill Russell, thank you. Wilt Chamberlain is really good too. But, I don't really even follow basketball like that as much anymore either. After the Sonics got sold off to Oklahoma City, I stopped being as invested. Really, I only follow basketball at this point because I follow wherever Isaiah Thomas goes and Avery Bradley, only because we're all from the same area. And like, me and Avery Bradley grew up in the same church. So, I'll follow and support wherever they go pretty much. But I don't have a favorite team anymore. We're about to wrap up because I am tired for some reason. Seattle's football team is trash. Listen, I'm beefing with the NFL, but I guess I'm not going to spend all day supporting the Seahawks today. But that is my team, just so y'all know. But I was there before they got good. I was there for the Mike Holmgren years. I was there when Ricky Waters still played. But no, I haven't really been paying attention. When's the next podcast episode? So, I don't know. I'll probably do it during December. The next episode will be, though, it'll be an extension of going in. Like, if you heard the last one, it was talking about when I moved back to America from Italy. The next episode follows in that, and it talks about my middle school years. For those who don't know, I do upload some of the podcast episodes on this channel after they've had their initial run on the podcast platforms. So some people only follow the podcast on YouTube and don't know that it's on different platforms. As far as uploading another episode to YouTube, normally what I do, I try to read the room So if I haven't done like an in the news or a lot of heavy videos or, stuff or a live, I normally don't upload a podcast until after I've done some of those things. Cause I notice if I disappear for a week and a half or two and then I upload a podcast, y'all be cussing me out. Like, really? You ain't been here for 2 weeks? All you got is this stupid podcast? So, there's that. But, the podcast, I like the podcast. It's one of the harder things to do though, because you start running out of stories. And then really, like, I've tried to shift my energy where I'm not stretching myself so thin. I'm trying to balance things out a little bit more. So the podcast is normally what suffers the most because that's the thing that it gets the least traction. So, but I love the podcast. It's a lot of fun. Like literally, if you follow the podcast, you understand where all my humor comes from. And then I think you just also understand me a lot better. And then a lot of things that you may like question or be like, what he is the weirdest thing. The podcast makes a lot of it make sense. You know what I mean? What thoughts on the Michael Jackson case? Accuser has case thrown out. I already told y'all, like with Michael Jackson, there were so many people that were after money. And again, I just don't understand how an FBI would case this man for 10 years and find nothing. And then magically you have, what's his name? Wade, whatever his name is, Robinson and the other dude magically come up with whatever they were claiming after they've literally spent years defending this man. And then as soon as the job opportunity was turned down for whatever that little Cirque du Soleil crap was, next thing you know, they got cases. And then again, most of what's been in that documentary has been debunked at this point. And so I'm surprised the state hasn't sued at this point for putting out bad information and doing what they could do to tarnish that man's legacy. He had already been through enough, like, damn. Anyway, we're going to wrap. I'm going to do 5 more minutes and then we are off this thing. I got to catch up on my shows. Y'all know I'm still on the same episode of Lovecraft Country. I'm still on the same episode 6, well, the episode where he was in Korea. I got to catch up. Will I be going live tomorrow? I just went live. Oh no, look, y'all ain't about to see another live for like 2 weeks. Lives, you got to plan your whole life around the live. Goodness. Yes, I'm still in Korea on Lovecraft Country. I'm still there. I ain't even got out, like, man. And I heard it gets really, really good. You know what else I watched that was weird? Because on Halloween I stayed in. Me and a friend, we watched this movie called Would You Rather. I don't know if you've seen it. It's on Netflix. That is the craziest movie. Like, I don't want to spoil it, but literally it's about these people who are in these financially destitute situations and they need help. So there's this really rich guy. It's kind of like that movie Rat Race again, but there's this really rich guy who invites them over to a house and all they have to do is play a game of Would You Rather. But the problem is the things that they would rather do, they're all terrible things. This is like a horror suspense flick. So it would be like, I don't know, would you rather cut off your hand or slit the person sitting next to you's throat? I watched that mess. I was like, oh, okay, that movie was wild, but it was entertaining, but it was wild. The things people will do for money, like, man. Somebody said I should do a movie watch along and go live. I don't think people would sit through that. Like, yeah. I don't know if that's my thing, but I will say there are some cool things I'm looking into jumping into to kind of expand. I'm trying to expand outside of just YouTube because I noticed that I'm starting to get censored a lot more. So I'm just trying to jump ahead of the curve just in case YouTube decides, okay, your channel got to go, you doing too much. So there are some things I haven't made my decisions yet on some of the things. So, but we'll talk about it later if it comes into fruition. And there's also some really cool opportunities that have been coming. So I'm just kind of doing my thing. And then for people who like my music, of course, I'm still always working on something. I don't really have any release date planned, but if I do have something, it'll be probably later in the end of the spring, you know? So somebody said, where's my couch from? Bob's Discount Furniture. This Ethiopian lady hooked me up because she thought I was Ethiopian. And when I came in there, she was talking about Assalamu alaikum. And I was like, oh, what's up? So hooked me up. All right. Nice discount. Let's see. The painting is from IKEA. You know, like, listen, I got it right from IKEA. You just unroll it and hook it up and cut and put it right in there. Like, I am a very frugal person. Well, I'm not as frugal as I would like to be, but I don't believe in spending too much money on nothing. As long as the quality is good, it is what it is. You know what I mean? TikTok, I'm good on, Elizabeth. And I'm only good on TikTok because I work with kids and all of them are on TikTok. And I'm already trying to have a life, like as far as this internet thing, without them always finding everything I do. Like, I can't have anything without them finding it. I remember when I used to have a Kick and then somehow they found my Kick. I'm like, how do you find my Kick? You'd have to have my phone number to have that. How did you get my Kick? You know what I mean? They found the YouTube. They never knew I did music. And then one day I was at work and I just heard my voice. I said, and I looked, and this is when I only had my first album out. And I happened to look, And it was all my teenage boys gathered around a computer. I was like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. And of course, they were playing the one song or two that I'm rapping on. So, you know, they were at that. I was like, damn. And so they find all my stuff. They want, I don't know. I love the kids, but man, they don't let me have nothing. They didn't even know I did a music video. Somehow they found that out too. I'm like, y'all don't let me have anything. What kind of tea am I drinking? This is that same one I always drink. It's from this Asian brand called, I think it's Hansai. It's ginger tea, but I like it because they literally just take real ginger, grind it up, and mix it with honey and put it in there. So it's like a powder. It's just straight ginger. It's not like that bootleg ginger tea in the bag where you drink it and it still tastes like water. Thank you, by request 99. What are your thoughts on the Soul Train Awards doing it virtual? I think that makes sense based on how good the BET Awards was with the virtual performances. I like the virtual, mainly because, again, when it's virtual, there's no reason for your performance to suck. Like, if you hit a bad note, you can go back and redo it. You know what I mean? Like, if the dancer's all Mr. Q's, you can go back and reshoot. Like, the world is at your feet. There's no reason for anybody to have a bad performance when it's virtual. Plus, Soul Train Awards is already, in my opinion, one of the best award shows out there when you want to hear some really good singing and see some good showmanship. And so if they can already do all of that live and kill it, imagine how good some of that is going to be when it's virtual. So I support it. I think it comes on next week too. We'll do a review of it, of course. I love reviewing Soul Train Awards. That's one of my favorites. All right. Well, let's do 2 or 3 more questions, then we're going to wrap up. Are you reading The Half That Has Never Been Told? I don't even know what that is. Let me write it down. You know, I'm notorious for starting a book and never finishing it. I got so many books I'm still trying to read. The Half Has Never Been Told. Yeah, I got so many books that I've started. I'm always and then with freaking Audible, it don't help. On Audible right now, I'm reading like 4 books at the same time. Of course, like I said, I started the Malcolm X one. I mean, I've already read it before, but it's just different when you have it being read to you. I recently got Springfield Confidential. It's about The Simpsons. Like, if you saw my last video, again, The Simpsons is one of my favorite shows. So one of the writers just talks about their experience on the show. Craig Seymour, who I didn't even realize we follow each other on Twitter, but, you know, Craig Seymour is a really great journalist that's followed a lot of Black music for years. You know, had some really cool interviews, like a lot of the interviews you saw on Vibe magazine with like a Janet or, you know, a lot of other people he's done. And he's from DC. He has the book Luther Vandross. So I just started that one. And do I have anything else? There's a girl named Elizabeth Ace Vito. My friend Tana May told me about this book called The Poet X. I finally got it, but I haven't really gotten to it all the way. I'm only like 1 or 2 chapters in. So I'm always reading a bunch of different books at the same time. It takes me forever to get through them for some reason. And I restarted The Coldest Winter Ever just to kind of refresh my memory, because that's always been a really good book. Calvin, are you going to do another album in 2021 for the new year? Just sit tight. I kind of wanted to still push the current album, but COVID kind of ruined things. Like I said, I still want to do another video or 2. But with COVID, I'm trying to take all the safety precautions. But I'll tell you, one of the things I do want to go back and do, I think I said before, I'm definitely looking to go and remaster the first album, because I hate how it sounds. Like, it sounds like, again, like, it sounds so wonderful in my studio, but I don't think it really plays that well on most devices. It only sounds good in headphones, in my opinion. And so that's been killing me. So I'm like, you know what, as soon as I finish some other things, I'm going back and I'm gonna remaster that. I might even go back and re-record some of the vocals on there just to fix some stuff. Sam Cartoon TV said I should do a remix album. You know what, actually, last year I started a remix EP and then I just never put it out. I had a remix to Get Down. I have a remix to Addicted from this album. I have a remix to Request from the first album. And I have a remix to, what did I do a remix to? Serenity from the current album. But it's probably never coming out. We'll see. Anyway. All right, guys. This has been really, really good. I appreciate y'all for rocking with me. Thank you for those who donated. Thoughts on Lenny Kravitz's memoir? I need to get it, but I do rock with Lenny Kravitz, so I'm sure that will be a very good read. Anyway, you guys are awesome. I love y'all. I really do. Y'all really be riding with me every time. They all are saying, no, don't go yet. You know, y'all, what we gonna talk about? I want to go to watch my shows. All right. We'll do 5 more minutes. I'm setting my clock, because we do this every live. This is how it is at work too. Like, when it's time to go home, the kids don't ever want to leave. I'm like, yo, get out. Like, I remember one time 2012, me and this girl were going to see Jill Scott. It was like a whole little date night thing. And it was summer camp. And so it was Jill Scott's block party. And we had already did a field trip and the bus got back late. And so I was supposed to meet the girl in China or Gallery Place at like 7. We were supposed to grab some food, then go straight to, at the time it was the Verizon Center, because it was Jill Scott, Kim, Salt and Pepper. Man, it took forever to get them kids out of that center. And then Route 1 was just backed up. I didn't even get to the area until almost 8 o'clock. And I don't know how she didn't slit my throat. She had to go ahead and just eat the meal by herself. I just got to the restaurant, got some water. By the time we got to the venue, Salt and Pepper was already halfway finished with the show. I was like, damn, kids are funny, because when they don't want to leave, they're not playing. Like even when Janet went on the last tour, I had already told the kids, we had drills and everything. Because I was like, listen, I think she came like November 14th or something at the time. I was like, on November 14th, we are closing 30 minutes early. Everybody's getting out. I'm not missing Janet for none of y'all. And at the same time, my coworker was pregnant with my goddaughter. And she had me paranoid because she kept saying, if I go into labor, can you, I want you to drive me to the hospital. I'm like, damn, why I gotta do it? Get the ambulance, because I get paranoid in moments like that. I get stressed out and stuff. It'd be just my luck. I'll ruin the whole thing. And literally, like I was in LA because I went to visit my grandpa. And literally, as I landed, I got the text from her husband saying, hey, they had the baby. I was like, yes, because she had the baby like 3 days early. I was like, perfect, because I was afraid she was going to go into labor at work on the same day as the concert. So anyway, I remember that concert came. Them kids, I was like, get out, get out, get out. My mom's not here. Okay, well, go to so-and-so's house because y'all will be over there anyway. See y'all later. I got in that car. It was traffic. I was driving on the soft shoulder trying to get to this. I was like, I'm not missing Janet for none of y'all, because it was hell. Like, you remember, she got pregnant and canceled my show. So I hadn't seen her since like 2008 or some crap like that. And I'm sorry, she is the last living entertainer that was one of my favorites. Like, Michael's gone, Prince is gone, Whitney's gone. So I got to give all their energy to Janet. And so I was not missing this show. I was on the soft shoulder trying to get to that crap. And then I couldn't find parking and everything. So I went home and got an Uber to the Verizon Center, because you couldn't get, because I think the show, I don't know if it was sold out, it was close to it if it wasn't, but like the garages were full. I got on that Uber, I got in that show. By the time I got there, out of breath, because I was pacing and walking, and then I forgot the ticket, but of course it's electronic, so I had it in the phone. And of course, that's when your signal don't want to work good. I'm like, come on. I was not missing this show. And I did all that like I wasn't going to go to the next show in Baltimore 2 days later. Like, there's just some people I go hard for. I'll go hard for some Janet. I'm starting to have that energy for Anderson .Paak, but he's still a newer artist, so I don't be that pressed. But like, listen, if I would have been able to go to Prince's tour in 2015, I would have been the same way. But going back to what I was saying, yeah, the kids are funny because sometimes they don't want to leave. And like in the spring or in the summer, like when the weather's nice, we haven't been able to, it's not normal right now because of COVID, but pre-COVID, like sometimes we would just be outside all day and they'd be getting like the dodgeball in and all, or kickball. And listen, I play with the kids. I'd be right there playing some dodgeball and kickball too. So I'd be living my second childhood. And so sometimes the center has closed at 7 o'clock and we're still out there at 7:45 playing and everything. It's just, kids are fun. They keep you energized. I feel like if I didn't have the job I have now, I'd probably be a lot more broke down than I already am physically. You know what I mean? They keep you on the go. Okay. Can I go to bed now? Can I go to bed, people? I appreciate that y'all are here, though, because listen, I remember there was a time where I had 100 subscribers and nobody cared. Anyway, like, listen, if y'all want to still chat, follow me on Twitter. Give me a beat. Do you collaborate with other indie artists? So let me tell you, the goal with the music, if the opportunity comes, I don't mind having a music career, but my goal is to just build a music resume. So after I finish what I think I'm working on, that'll probably be my last project if it becomes a project, or at least for a while. And then I'm going to actually start collabing with other people. Like, I want to produce for other people. I don't mind collabing. There's been some people that have reached out and I've said, oh yeah, we can get together. It's just the schedules are just crazy. And again, with COVID being here and everything being electronic, now you have the conversation of, okay, well, do you have Pro Tools or what do you use for your plugins? Blah, 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 blah. I think somebody reached out recently on Instagram about that. I don't know if you're on right now, but I will get back to your message. I did not ignore you. I promise you I didn't. Anyway, I think we're done, guys. This was good. We'll do another live soon. Please. What made you change your hair? Y'all keep asking questions. What made you change your hair? Listen, the thing was just, my hair has gotten so long, and I had to start doing more maintenance to it. Like there used to be a time I could just lay down and go to sleep and get up and put the little juices and berries and be on my way. But as if I were to pull my hair sits down here, and so it always wants to lock, and so I've had to find creative ways to stop it from locking. I have nothing against locks. I think they're beautiful. I just have never really wanted them, and so I always had to detangle and do that crap like once a week. So I started saying, okay, why don't I just kind of plait it and tie it back? That way it's easier to kind of manage. And it's because, trying to comb out and detangle that crap it'd be some work. and really, honestly, before, like from 2016 to 3 months ago, I had never ran a comb through this hair. And so imagine that first time, I think I had this much conditioner. I was trying to get, and I went and I got that. I know y'all seen it on Instagram. It's like this brush comb thing where it splits different ways, and I forgot what it's called, but I use that, and that thing just put in work. Like, okay, so yeah, now I gotta be like, I feel like I'm somebody's auntie doing hair maintenance at night. Like, man, now soon I'm about to be in a bonnet and wearing a face mask. Okay, guys, I'm going to bed for real now. I'm tired. I will see y'all. It's been real. Please stay safe in this COVID era. Use your discernment and use your common sense. I know there's a lot of misinformation being thrown out there, but again, we all would like to get back to our regular lives. And the faster people just start wearing a mask, even though it sucks, the things will start to slow down. And I don't know. And just keep your peace of mind, your sanity. You know what I mean? All that good stuff. Be great to somebody, just like people have been great to you. Anyway, I'm out. Subscribe. See you guys later. All right. Good night.